The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
All right. I guess it skipped. So 4, 3, 2, and 1.
I don't know.
I don't know. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. I was listening to it, but I don't know where it stopped at or started at. So, but I can see us on screen, so we're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate you. A real quick dog mom, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Just Irish, a member for 7 months. Thank you. Thank you. And Just Irish also gifted 5 memberships. So if you received one, please thank her for that. Thank you so much, Just Irish. And AMT became a member. Thank you. I really appreciate that, you guys. All right. It's been a while.
A little bit, with reason, though.
It's been about a month, I think. That's a long time.
A little too long, but again, we've got some good reasons for it. It's not as
Right.
though we were sitting on our asses doing nothing.
That's very true. Very true. All
How
right.
you been?
So tonight we're just going to kind of talk about the tragedy that hit my own family. I think it's important for me to share it. It's not a true crime story, but it does give me a little bit of insight to, the families and the victims and stuff. And so I think it's important for me to speak on that. And so that's
Great.
what I am going to do. Kathy Dewey became a new member. Thank you so much, Kathy. And again, we're just so happy to see all of you guys here. So,
Very.
kind of the elephant in the closet, I guess.
The closet. It's in the room. I don't know if you can
It's
see it
in
or
the
not.
room. So on November 13th, this is my oldest daughter. This is my forever baby, Megan. And on November 13th, she set out to pick up her sister in Tennessee in the evening. I saw her drive by, and my bedroom has a huge, huge window that faces our main road. And my husband and I actually saw her drive by our house that night. Didn't think anything of it. We all have Life 360. And so I went to bed, thinking everything was going to be okay. And I woke up around 4:30 in the morning and I looked at the Life 360 and something did not seem right with it. Just something was off. I could see that our car had been at a certain area since midnight, and this is now 4:30 a.m. And where the car was like between the interstate and a county access road, so it was like a ditch basically. And at first, I don't know, our brain tricks us into thinking things that it protects us. I'm not sure, but all I can think of is it protects us. And um, I just kept thinking this isn't right. Something's not right. Something's not right. I thought about driving there actually. It was about an hour and a half from where we live. And I thought about driving there and something just stopped me dead in my tracks, which is kind of unlike me. Usually that is something I would just go right to it. Something stopped me from doing that. About 8:30 that morning, I called my daughter's husband and I said, Josh, something is terribly wrong. Her car's been sitting in the same spot since midnight. It's now like 8:30 in the morning. We need to call the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. So he did, and they said that they had people in the area and they would go check it out and they'd give us a call back. So that's what we're told by the Highway Patrol. They call us back in about 30 minutes and they said, we need to have you meet at your home and we're going to have send a highway patrolman over to your home. Most everybody knows what that means when they say that. I knew it in my gut. I knew it in my heart. I instantly drove over there. I called Tara, I think was one of the first people I called actually.
Yeah.
I called Tara and then I called my other children. And then the highway patrolman came and everything just happened super fast. And I'm probably talking really fast too, but that's
You're
how I'm
good.
gonna have to do it.
You're good.
So We met over there. My parents came. My oldest son came. We were all there, and the highway patrolman pulled up. Um, Very nice guy. We actually know him. We knew him from baseball games in Enid. So my grandkids play with his son. So he was aware of who we were. He also knew who my daughter was because my daughter worked for the sheriff's department here. So she was well known by a lot of, the officers and stuff. So he gets out of his patrol vehicle and he says, you know, your daughter Megan was involved in an accident. And I said, well, I kind of figured that. And at this point, I still have this hope in my mind. I'm still really have hope. And the next thing he says is, she did not survive, and she has been taken to the Tulsa County coroner. And I didn't want to believe it. And I was in the middle of her front yard, and you see in the movies, whatever, the mother drops to her knees. That was me. I dropped dead to my knees in the middle of that yard. And I don't know how long I was there, but all I could do was just keep repeating, "No God, no God, no God." That's all I can remember is just saying, "No God, no, no, why?" And bless that officer, he was so kind, but unfortunately, they didn't give us any other information. So all I had was our Life 360. We were able to track that she had gone to convenience store. 10 minutes later is when we think she wrecked. Um, so that kind of ended that day up. Everything there is a blur. Really, the last 2 weeks are a blur. Um, like I'm functioning, but I'm just functioning. I feel like my mind is just really foggy, really foggy.
Right.
I can't remember things. I repeat myself. It has been a little rough mentally. And listen, I already have a problem with those kind of things. So I don't need any more help.
Well,
Yeah.
you've got good reason though. Very good reason
So
to be blurry into it's a lot to take
yes.
in, Carrie. It is a lot to take in.
So that day, it was only, I don't know, maybe a few hours at that point after the officer left. Somebody had to go pick up my granddaughter and my grandsons from school. And we had to tell them that their mom was no longer with us. The most horrific thing next to losing my own child was having to tell my grandsons that they never will see their mother again and hearing the howls, the wails of their crying. Just horrible, horrible is all I can say. Absolutely horrific. So, we got the kids through that. We all did it as a family, sat them down together, talked to my granddaughter as well because she was very close to her aunt. It's the only aunt she had. So the next day, I woke up like this is just a nightmare, and you still do not believe it. There's still I'm kinda coming to terms with it now, and, I like to consider myself a pretty strong woman, but even you can't there's no amount of strength that, can help you with this, really. And so another reason why I'm telling this story, is to kind of explain how I've been able to get myself through it without just completely losing myself, because that would be so easy to do. And I want to explain some of the ways that I have found that work for me. And I pray that this experience will at least help somebody else one way or another. So the next day, I was sent an article because keep in mind, at this point, we don't know any details. We just have the Life 360. We see where her car is. We know she's deceased. I know he told us they took her to the Tulsa or coroner, but I didn't remember him telling me that because the only thing I remember that officer saying is, and she's deceased. That's it. So that next day, I was sent an article. And of course, I open up the article because that's what I'm going to do every time. And it was an article about the death of my own daughter. And I mean, Tara, I contacted her right away. Um, that was so disturbing to me. I still can't really put it into words how disturbing it was to find out details of my child, my firstborn's death through news articles. And I instantly thought of LaDonna and all of them. Clint with Veronica, and how they have to see and find out things through the media or through YouTube and podcasters, and it's so heartbreaking. It's just not something you're prepared for. You don't get a minute to even think about it because it's right there in your face. And let me show you a couple more pictures here real quick. So these were all her. These are her siblings, all blondes. And this picture just, this is who she was.
That epitomizes her so
I
much.
mean, she was probably like in a Dollar Tree or something. I don't know, but that's just who she was. She was very fun, loving, a huge heart. She'd do anything in the world for anybody. And she was my best friend. She wasn't just my daughter. She really was my best friend. And as moms and daughters do, over the years, we fight like hell, but we loved really hard. So we loved each other deeply. And I mean, she's forever, ever going to be missed. So yeah, that next day, I read in the newspaper, and what I read, and I'll just share it because if we're going to do it, we're going all the way.
She was 31, right, Kari?
Yeah, 31. 31. She has two sons. They're only 8 and 10, and then she has a stepson that has always been with them, and he was actually off at Navy boot camp training. So anyway, so this is the article I think is sharing now, right?
It is. I had to remove it and add it for me. That's how I got this figured out.
We always have that problem.
Hate this.
So it says Westport, the Oklahoma Highway Patrol reports that a Pawn Creek resident was killed in a one-vehicle accident that occurred at 7:48 a.m. Thursday on US 64 eastbound lanes in Osage County. Troopers report that Megan Holman, 31, was traveling east on US 64 when she departed the road to the right, causing the vehicle to roll 4 times before coming to rest on its wheels. Holman was pronounced dead at the scene at 7:55 a.m. by Peninsula Fire Department. And I read this in a paper, you guys, with head, internal trunk, and external trunk injuries. And that's all I know so far. That is it. We don't have any more details. The investigative report is still not complete. The coroner, they've done their preliminary, I guess is what they call it, and obviously it's ruled accidental, but we don't know what happened. Did she lean down to pick up a cigarette lighter or her phone? Did a deer dart in front of her and she tried to avoid it? We just don't know those answers. And I think not knowing those answers is really tough because I don't know. My youngest son is like, you're obsessed. You don't need to know those answers. And I'm like, you don't understand. I will find out every last detail because that is how my brain works. And that's how I have to heal. My husband is complete opposite. So he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to see pictures. He doesn't want to know details. So we all deal with shit in our own way, I guess is my point. So then there was this.
Well, I want to stop right there for
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
a second, just to point some things out, because you had said the Life 360 showed the car stopped at midnight but wasn't found until much later because you checked it early
Yeah.
in the morning. This goes to reading media accounts very superficially, because that report that Kari just put up there said the car accident occurred at 7:48 in the morning, because that's when emergency services showed up.
Right.
That is super important, because that's not those kinds of timeline reporting facts do not just apply to this case. They apply to anything that you read. I write for a local paper, and I can tell you, you only are allowed so many words, and you make it fit. If you're not a good writer, you'll make it fit crappily, like that one did, in my opinion. And so just to keep that in mind as we kind of go through this stuff, that just because Kari has already told you some things, but that first article is already reporting something different than Kari said. Kari has the facts and the details as best as she does from law enforcement and an app that told her what was going on. Just some food for thought as we go through this.
Yeah, because we know, like it said that they pronounced her deceased, I believe, at 8:55 in the morning. We know that's not correct because the Life 360 showed her car in that spot from midnight on. And I think that was for me, Tara. I think you'd think the same. That to me was probably the hardest part of all of this was knowing that my baby laid there in her car in a ditch for 8 hours by herself. Just that thought as a mom is just it's horrible. It's really, really horrible.
Yeah.
Um, so then this is one of the last pictures we took together. And I don't mind putting this stuff out there. I'm doxing myself, whatever. I mean, if somebody wants to try to ever use this shit against me, that will be your one and only regret. So there's that.
I've already made
So
that. Oh wow.
So these are pictures of the car. There's a very kind lady that drove by, and I'm going to read some messages to you that she sent me. And to me, she was like my angel, like my daughter's angel. So this is one that she sent me. These are the actual pictures of my daughter's car at the tow yard, and I mean, you can see it's just a mangled mess. Just horrific, horrific car crash. So, um, and I want to share with you these. So this lady messaged me, and I didn't know her. She didn't know me, and she said, "I know you don't know me, but I'm hoping you see this message. Yesterday morning, I'd picked up my granddaughter from her other grandma to take her to school. As we made it just over the hill from their house, I saw the wreck. I immediately got a sick feeling and thought it was odd that no police or anyone were there, but it appeared it was not very recent. I called our local fire department and asked if they knew about it. He said no and asked where I was. As I told him, I was pulling up to the car and I saw someone in the car. I didn't get out because I had my 4-year-old granddaughter with me and she was very concerned. I started to leave after he said he was on his way, and I knew he was less than 5 minutes from me. My mama heart wouldn't let me leave. And I don't know why I cut it off there on accident, but she goes on to say that her mama heart would not let her leave. She knew that was somebody's daughter. And man, could more of us be that way, please? Because what she did seemed probably so simple to her, but Lord, it meant the world to me, did it not, Tara? Like, I mean,
It did. She
it gave me a few answers. It gave me a little
Mhm.
bit of peace because she said that she did see my daughter in the car and it just looked like she was sleeping.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I remember
very
when you
sweet.
sent that to me, and it was a hard message to read, but at the same time, it was needed. It was
Yes.
good. It gave you some. You were able to take a breath to realize she was not alone the entire time. Somebody was there at the end, and somebody brought attention to her, and helped her get to helped her get what she needed at the very end. Um,
Yeah.
and she's a very sweet lady. Kari was not in a position to be making those connections at that point, so I actually reached out to the gal and said
Oh
she's
yeah, I
got the
forgot about
message.
that.
She's got the message. She was scared to death to contact Kari. She thought she was going to hurt her, but she knew she has a 31-year-old child herself, and she didn't know anything until the media started reporting in the news online, and she said she just couldn't sit there and leave some mother wondering, what
Yeah.
if, what happened, and I said, no, you gave Kari an opportunity to finally breathe.
Yeah,
um
she really, really did. And I think it was so until she sent me those, I believe that was the timeline. And like I said, a lot of things really are a blur. Um, my emotions were all over the place. I'd be laughing one minute, I'd be crying the next. It's just so all over the place. It still kind of is, although I've evened out a little bit more. Like as you can see, I can talk about this. I'm not bawling. But this is a message to other true crime creators. I only lost my daughter 2 weeks ago, my firstborn. I'm not bawling on the YouTube live. You know why? Because I probably bawled 2 hours ago.
Hmm.
We gotta stop doing that. Like, she's not showing the emotion she needs to be, or he's not acting the
Correct.
way he needs to be. That's so much bullshit. You don't know how we act when we're not on the camera or we're not on a live. You don't know how those parents act when they're not doing an interview with a creator and things like that. So, gosh, I really want other creators to be so much more responsible with that. I don't think that some of them will. The ones
No.
that will already do, and the ones that won't even listen to the message,
Correct.
unfortunately. But
Well, in this goes back. We've seen you've done it way, way, way more than I have, Kari, where people have judged and passed some criticisms against parents who are like, why are they going out to eat and their child has been missing for 6 months, and why isn't that mother bawling on
yeah,
national TV? And we had, I don't know if anybody remembers, we had Amanda. What's Amanda's last name? It's Libby's mom. We had
yeah,
Libby's mom on, and she was an absolute wreck, which is what everybody expected. But she was trying to find her 15-year-old daughter out on the streets of Minnesota. And then we've got you on here who's like, look, I just got done bawling my eyes out 2 hours ago. I need a mental break. I'll be back to bawling after I'm done here. Unless you get there, I'll put it to you like this. In a note I wrote to Kari, I gave her a gift, and I wrote her a note that said, as a mother, I don't want to know what you're going through, but as a friend, I want to know exactly what you're going through. Because I know in one moment you've got one set of emotions, and the next moment the emotions have shifted and you're focusing on this emotion. And so it's so unfair until you get to those shoes to pass judgment on somebody, because you just think you know what you're going to
yeah,
do, and
and
you
you
don't
don't.
know until you're there.
Like, I would never imagine myself to be the woman that falls at her knees and just screams, "No, God, no." That's not like, I wouldn't think that's the person I am, but it happened. I had no
Well, that's
control
a
over it.
reaction, isn't though? That's the
Yeah.
worst reaction you could possibly imagine. In CB, they had crash detection on, hun.
Yes.
It did
That was
not.
another
Live
thing I wanted to
360
bring
did
up.
not report it.
Yep. We had crash detection on. Now I am forever thankful for Life 360, because had we not had that, I would have been the mom at 4:30 in the morning wondering where is my daughter, because we were just like that. We would text constantly throughout the day. We talked constantly throughout the day. So by the time she didn't respond to my text for about 30 minutes or an hour, I would have been just beside myself. I would have been driving across Oklahoma with no direction in mind.
Mhm.
So Life 360 to me was super important. The crash detection did not work though. With that said, her shit, what's it called, Tara? Her
Which
thingies didn't come out.
her
Airbags. The
her
airbags did
airbags
not
did not deploy.
deploy.
So I
Yeah.
looked into that. When you told me that, I got all kinds of twisted about it. And so I looked into it. And depending upon the circumstances and how the car hits the ground, at what speed, at what angle, it actually can incapacitate the electrical system that's supposed to set off the
Yeah.
airbags.
Yeah, like everything
That's
that should have
it was
worked didn't work, you know?
correct. Yes.
Knoxville agent is one of those mini coupes. So, I
Mhm.
mean, like I said, everything that, nothing
Top
worked.
heavy little car.
Yep, she had the car against her, she had the speed, that interstate is 75 miles an hour. She
Dark,
at
dark.
dark, there are hardly any, lights on that interstate, and it's not very busy. It's not an interstate, it's a turnpike. It's not very busy, um, but like I said, we just don't know why. I do need to know the why. I have to
Mhm.
know the why, or at least get as close as I possibly can. Um, Another thing I wanted to say too was, immediately after this, I had to jump into action and plan a funeral. We don't have that kind of money, where we could have a funeral home, take care of all our plans and stuff. And I think truly, even if we did, and we probably could have gone that route, but even if we did, I, to me, this was my child, and I wanted control over every last detail.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. So for a full week, I sat listening to songs over and over. It took like 4 days to pick 3 songs because nothing seemed good enough for her. Nothing was gonna be good enough. No flowers in the world could be good enough. no song could possibly, speak what we felt. But I put a lot of energy into that, and I think that helped me
It did.
heal. I really truly did. That and
You
visits
got up in
from my
that funeral and
pastor.
spoke without shedding a tear. You did
Yeah.
so good when you because Carrie put the whole thing together. She got up and she read a poem, and it actually was on a live stream. And I know Carrie put it on her Facebook Live. Um, and I was expecting, I was ready to rush up to that
Yeah, because
stand
that
where
was
she
the
was.
plan.
Yes, I was
If I
ready to get up
couldn't do
there
it
and get her.
and, there was just something that was like, "You can do this. You can do this." And
Yeah.
all I could hear is Megan saying, "Mama, you can do it. Mama, you can do it." And another thing I do wanna mention, so, our friend Yep here on YouTube also wrote a poem for the
Yes.
funeral, and it was absolutely beautiful. Tara got up and read that for us. So thank you, Yep. That really, truly meant, a whole lot to me. Um,
So beautifully done too.
yes.
You couldn't have done that more perfectly because Carrie read her poem that she wrote, and it was almost like you two had plotted and
Right.
written, like they were so well aligned. They were not identical, but they carried into one another, and Carrie positioned them beautifully in the funeral. If sounds so morbid to say, but if you need funeral planning, Carrie's your person. Most people are great wedding planners. I think Carrie can knock out these funeral plans better than anybody. It was
I mean,
just
I did
the
a
most amazing thing.
program, what, 3-page program and everything,
Yeah.
because for me, it just had to be absolutely perfect. Like, I sent Tara and my other, best friend in there right before, and I'm like, "Go make sure those flowers look good," because
Oh my gosh, it's
trust
so
me,
funny.
we do not want me walking in and that any flowers being out of place because I feel like I'm gonna go off on somebody.
Oh my gosh, that was
And,
so funny.
you
And
know,
y
I was mad at God, I was mad at, the deer. No, seriously, I really got angry at the deer because what if it was a deer's fault? I was angry at God. I told my, pastor, I'm like, "I'm angry at God. I don't understand how God would let this happen." And, he was very comforting, and so that helped me a lot too. Like, it's okay to be mad at God. It's okay.
yeah.
You don't have to feel guilty about that. And, so I just kinda was able to let that go, but I think doing the funeral helped me work through all of those emotions because I cried for 3 days straight. I cried so much I couldn't cry anymore. And, the one last thing I kinda wanna say on this, and I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in apparitions. I don't believe in any of this shit. I really don't. However, right after this happened, the first 3 nights in a row, I woke up with the most horrific nightmares, and it was about 1:30 AM for the first 3 nights. And in those nightmares, all I could do was see my daughter in the car, and I was seeing her in a very, very horrific way without me saying anything, you can imagine. Now I know that the way I was seeing her is not the way it was because there was no blood in her car. None. None at all.
Correct.
So I had that nightmare for the first 3 nights. That lady sent me the messages, and I'm telling you guys that next night I had a dream about the same exact time, but this time it was Megan on the ocean, and she was, like, walking, jogging, whatever. Her long hair was flowing in the wind, and it was the most beautiful image in the world of my daughter. And I truly think that was her saying, "Mom, I'm at peace. I'm fine. I don't want you just destroying yourself." And she has been behind me every step of the way. I truly think that, Tara. Like, you guys
Great.
aren't friends on my Facebook, but you'll see all of a sudden I've been baking. Listen, guys,
Oh
I
my
don't cook.
gosh.
I don't bake. Megan bakes. Megan cooks. Megan
Told
plans.
you you were possessed.
I don't do any of that. Yeah, Tara's like, "I think you're possessed with her." I'm like, "Well, get this damn baking possession out of me because this is ridiculous. This is like, kind of
No, what's
extreme."
ridiculous is I'm too far away to come get to me some of that. That's what's
But I could
ridiculous.
totally see her up there just laughing at me like, I got her to fucking bake."
That would be. She
Yep.
would totally do that too.
Yep, it would be pretty funny. So yeah, just Iris, they definitely came in dreams, and I had never been a
Yes.
believer of that, but you couldn't change my mind now for nothing. You really could not. So I just wanted to share my story. I hope that I'm able to help others. I hope I'm able to help victims, parents, in a way that no mom wants to be in that percent of mothers that have lost a child. But I'm going to put this to something positive. That's what Megan would want me to do. That is who I am. And I don't know what it will be, but it's going to be something. So, to other parents that have lost their child to either death or currently have a missing child, I just want you to know that I hear you, I see you, and I understand.
And for coming from the other side of it, Carrie, for those of us who have not had the same experience, this is we hear you and we see you, but in a very sympathetic way. You've got the empathy now, and if you ever wondered the difference about empathy and sympathy, this is an unfortunate but perfect example. Empathy is where you can feel it firsthand. You understand it because you've experienced it. And sympathy is where you want to understand it, but you don't have the firsthand experience, but you have the desire to because you care enough to. So I have extreme sympathy for Carrie, and I've been trying to be by her side and when appropriate, make her laugh over stupid crap and be like, you know what? You got one less mouth to feed. I don't know. Let's figure this out. And she's like, oh my God, Terry, I'm getting off the phone with you. I'm like, hey, you called me. I'm just saying. But
Yeah, everybody, all the messages, the community support. Um, I just want to remind you that even if you think that it's just words to you, your words can truly impact another person in both positive and negative ways. But the amount of support that my family received, the amount of uplifting messages, and, I've been there, I'm a mom, I've been there too. Those really help. All of it helps. Every last one of you, it has helped. So thank you. Truly thank you, because I don't know if I would be able to sit here and tell you guys the story otherwise. So I appreciate it. And Tara has been right there by my side the entire time. And well,
she
you
can't
guys,
get rid of me.
I love Tara dearly. So thank you guys. All right, so we're gonna move on to the case of Michael Vaughn. And um, I don't know how many of you in here have actually heard of this case. Have you, any of you heard of Michael Vaughn missing case?
I haven't heard of it until you mentioned it to me. I don't think I saw the picture, and the kid looks really familiar to me. Oh, we're gonna do this stuff. Okay, there we go. He's adorable kid, absolutely adorable.
Yeah, he's precious. So, great. So a lot of people I don't think have, and this is why I
No,
wanted to do this, because we have a different audience than those that usually watch cases
it's
like missing Michael
Irish.
Vaughn.
Irish says monkey. That sounds. I think that was something
Yeah.
that.
So Monkey is a nickname that his family calls him.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, and yep, I'm gonna talk about that as well. And I have Brandy's the family's wish list, Amazon wish list link too. So I just want to share his case again because he's been missing for 3 years. Um, and this is Boise, Idaho. This was from March 1st, 2024. And I chose this article because it gives a fairly quick and good overview of what's happened. So this past July marked a 3-year anniversary since Michael Vaughn disappeared near his home in Fruitland, Idaho. For several months, it appeared as if he would never be found. Calls and tips to the Fruitland police numbered in the hundreds, but still no trace of the now 7-year-old, who is affectionately known as Monkey by family and friends. Then, a little over a year ago, Fruitland police caught a lead. They searched the home and property of Sarah and Stacy Wandra, which is just a few blocks from where Michael was last seen. It's a couple streets over from his home. The Fruitland Police Department said in a press conference after the search that they had discovered evidence that Michael's remains were likely buried in the backyard at one point, but that his remains have since been moved to an unknown location. So Sarah Wandra was arrested and charged with failing to report a death to the coroner, but those charges were dropped shortly after. She's been serving times for unrelated crimes since then. The Fruitland police forwarded the case to the prosecutor, saying they believe there is enough evidence to show that Michael's remains were on the property at one point. The Fruitland police chief, J.D. Huff, told CBS 2 that, quote unquote, our case is in the hands of the Fayette County prosecutor. Our investigation is ongoing. The entirety of the case, as well as tips and leads, are still coming in and are still being worked. And there are no planned searches for now.
Sandra and Stacy, those are parents?
No,
His mother?
they are the ones that own the property where they believe they had buried Michael's body and then dug him up and moved him again because all cadaver dogs hit on their property for him. And they brought in like huge excavators and everything to dig up their backyard, and then they didn't find anything.
So neither one are related to the boy.
No, they're not. They're not. They're kind of a little off. I think she owned
Well,
like cab business, and yeah,
okay.
said they no longer. So probably knows this case as well as I do, probably better. Yeah, just Irish. Guy said they're a little weird, but she's like they're very strange, and yeah, they are very
The
strange.
Wandra. So, some people know this case, and they have no connection to the boy, but his remains were there. I have all the questions. How in the
Yes.
hell?
Yeah. Okay. So they lived around the corner from him.
Okay.
And Stacy Wandra. Stacy is actually a male, by the way, Tara. Stacy is
Okay,
a
thank
male.
you. Most Stacys I know are female, so give me some
Right.
space.
Okay, so then there is this quick video. Let's share this one with you.
Just panic-stricken. I was just panic-stricken. I think I was for the next few days. Just didn't seem real.
Almost 3 years now since Michael Vaughn was last seen. That clip of his father that you just saw taken a year after his disappearance.
At the time, his mom also struggling with the reality of their then 5-year-old boy taken from just outside their Fruitland home in July 2021.
It's just been too long. 1 day was too long. 1 hour was too long. This is not fair to him. It's not fair to his siblings. It's not fair to his family.
Last year, prosecutors charging Sarah Wandra for not reporting a death, then dropping the case. The court sentencing her for something unrelated. Wandra lives just a few blocks away from the Vaughan home. Police claim to have evidence Michael was buried on her property, then his body moved. But as of now, the investigation still sits in the hands of county prosecutors. If you have any information, call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or you can contact the Fruitland Police Department. Both those numbers are here. We also got them on the website, idahonews.com, and we've also got an email tip line as well there.
All right, that was one. And then there is also this one I wanted to share with you.
No human remains found in the ongoing search for missing Fruitland boy Michael Vaughn. That's the latest update from the Fruitland Police Department after an extensive search of a home and backyard just a half a mile from the family's home, where Michael was last seen July 27th of last year. Anchor Karen Lair has been in Fruitland all day, where police briefed the media. And Karen, they introduced some new names of individuals they're trying to track down.
Yeah, and Don, we already knew the names and faces of Sarah and Stacy Wandra. They live at the house that police have been searching over the last couple of weeks. But now they tell us they believe there are 4 people with details and knowledge about the death and disappearance of Michael Vaughn.
We did not find Michael's remains.
After days of digging, no human remains found at a Fruitland home that's become the center of the search for missing Michael Vaughn. Police adamant the investigation is still their top priority.
We're just not going to stop. Everybody should know that. We are not going to stop until we uncover the truth in its entirety.
Investigators say all dogs involved in search efforts earlier this month alerted to human remains on the property, but no bones or body parts were discovered. Authorities now believe Vaughn was abducted, killed, buried on the property, then moved.
All of those who have knowledge of Michael's disappearance and have failed to report or hindered our investigation will be pursued.
At a Thursday press conference, authorities releasing the names and faces of 4 individuals they say were staying in the home at the time of Vaughn's disappearance last July. Sarah Wandra was arrested immediately before search efforts began, charged with failing to report Vaughn's death. She will remain in custody as the investigation continues. Stacy Wandra, Sarah's husband, has been behind bars in Washington County since May on an unrelated charge.
We believe that Stacy has firsthand knowledge and is involved in the abduction of Michael Vaughn.
Chief Huff tells me they have enough evidence to file formal charges against Stacy in relation to Michael's case, and those charges are likely forthcoming. Now, police say 2 others were staying with the Wandras, Brandon Shurtleff and Adrian Lucien, both currently out of state and not in touch with police.
I strongly encourage Shurtleff and Lucien to contact the Fruitland Police Department detectives as the window of time for talking and cooperation is coming to a close.
As for the next steps of the search, investigators will use ground-penetrating radars to scan a neighbor's yard in a voluntary search on Friday, although search dogs did not alert authorities to any remains there. Fruitland Police Chief Huff is asking anyone who may have information on this investigation to come forward and talk to authorities. They are also asking the community to continue giving Michael Vaughn's family privacy during this difficult time. You can watch that entire press conference in this story on our website, idahonews6.com. Reporting in Fruitland, I'm Karen Lair, Idaho News 6.
Oh, let me get us back here. Not that one. No.
Thanks for watching Idaho News 6. I'm Don Nelson. No human
I'm gonna
remains
tell
found.
you the date on that video. That was Idaho News 6, and that was December 1st of 2022. So yeah, 3 years. Sarah is an absolute wackadoo. I agree, just Irish. And somebody else. What is a splash pad? So a
Splash
splash pad.
pad.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Tara.
I'm just like, I'll just jump in.
Go
So a
ahead.
splash pad is one of those. It's a flat surface. It has some holes in it that water. It looks like a flat fountain without the actual little pool that goes with the fountain where you would toss your coins in. So it's just a flat surface, usually cement or brick, and there's just water being shot up so that kids can kind of run around and get wet without a pool. That's all it is. I have all the questions, which get to the ducking point is made clear. If I don't have questions, the world's probably coming to an end.
Right?
Did I see correctly that this little boy was walking home while
So
dad was changing a diaper?
my understanding is dad was changing the little sister's diaper, and while he was doing that, little Michael snuck out of the house, as little kids tend to do, and he went to try to
Okay.
find a friend to play with.
Okay,
And
that makes
so,
sense now.
yeah, and so
That
the
checks.
law enforcement, what they think has happened is that while he went looking for his little, friends to play with on down the road, that Stacy, Wandra, and his wife, or one or both or whatever, possibly picked him up in his neighborhood and abducted him, and then have done something with him since. But like I said, there's still no charges brought forward. There's just that one piece of the puzzle I think that they still need.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh
he was
boy.
just out and about,
And okay, so I get that. If you it's one of those things where it's the perfect storm of events, and
Mhm.
the little 4-year-old hauls ass out of there thinking, I'm gonna go find a friend to play with because I'm having a day and I want a friend to go play with. It happens. I get that.
Yes, and like that's another case that, the parents were really crucified. It was the dad, the mom and dad, they were not married. They are now. She was at work at a grocery store. Dad was at home with the kids. And after this happened, the dad did not speak on camera very often at all. It was rarely we saw him, but the mom became the warrior for her son. And they, really got hammered on YouTube and podcasts and stuff. And it's just awful. I mean, I imagine he felt
Oh.
such a huge sense of guilt that this happened on his watch. All eyes are looking at him like he's done something wrong, because 5-year-olds don't simply just sneak out the door to go play. They do. They
Yes, they
truly
do.
do.
Well, when I lived in an apartment with my boys when they were 3 and 5, there was only one way in and out of my apartment, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking when I'd go to the back of the apartment to use the restroom, be like, "Dear Lord, please don't let these 2 boys go outside. That would be great." It's just one of the I get it, so I don't question that at all. I also don't question why a father or a mother, any parent for that fact, would not wanna be on camera and talk. Um, that some people just don't deal that way very well, and knowing what I know
Yeah.
about the media now, sometimes the media can suck, and they can be very mean and
Brutal.
very yeah, brutal. "If you do not come on camera, we're gonna report this as it looks like," type of
Hmm.
crap. And that's not fair to a parent who's suffering, trying to focus on finding their kid, and now they gotta focus on a reputation they really don't care about, but God forbid they go to trial.
Well, and also, our media, I don't understand why there's still people that think that the media is not biased because they absolutely are biased.
Very much so.
You're not watching just, usually, not always. There are some good ones, but typically you're just watching an overview of what somebody told them is going on,
Yeah.
basically. I've done interviews with national media. I can tell you how it works, and that's how it works. So
Yeah. Well,
if they
sex
don't want
sells.
to
It's gotta
discuss
sell.
something, huh? What's that?
Sex sells, so it's gotta sell.
Right, yeah, it's gotta be juicy. So the
Yeah.
juicier they can make it, that more views that they get, kinda like other YouTube creators, that's how it goes. Um, I can say well, I'll get to that point here when we go over Veronica and Jillian. Alright,
Mhm.
so this is the last video I wanna share with you guys on Michael. And mainly, I just want you guys to see his picture, know who he is, know these suspects, see their pictures, and, hopefully, eventually, one day, this will reach just that right person that will be able to make this case a prosecutable case and Michael get justice and his family as well. Bianca became a member. I'm gonna have to make Tara sing every time we get a new member. We're gonna make Tara sing.
Can I pick the song? Like
I don't know.
London
Should we
Bridges
let her pick the song, or
falling
should you guys
down,
pick it?
falling down. I'm gonna pick nursery rhymes. Y'all
Oh
make
my
me
gosh.
sing.
All right. So let's listen to what this one is. This is also from Idaho News 6 on December 1st, 22.
In the ongoing search for missing Fruitland boy Michael Vaughn. That's the latest update from the Fruitland Police Department after an extensive search of a home and backyard just a half a mile from the family's home, where Michael was last seen July 27th of last year. Anchor Karen Lair has been in Fruitland all day, where police briefed the media. And Karen, they introduced some new names of individuals they're trying to track down.
Yeah, and Don, we already knew the names and faces of Sarah and Stacy Wandra. They live at the house that police have been searching over the last couple of weeks. But now they tell us they believe there are 4 people with details and knowledge about the death and disappearance.
Oops, wrong one. You guys
Doesn't
didn't say
seem
anything.
familiar. Well, we
Nobody
just
said, "Hey, we just watched that." You guys just gonna let me do it twice.
Yeah, well, you're in charge. You know what you're doing. We do not
Oh
question the
man.
master.
Our kids follow
Oh,
our
God.
lead. Even when we're not watching, they're learning. Our influence helps teach.
I don't know what goes on here. I don't like their website though. Okay.
Yeah, no joke.
All these ads. Holy cow.
So excited about ads.
I'm here to clear my name.
The people Fruitland police is now calling a suspect in the abduction of Michael "Monkey" Vaughn spoke to News 7 Investigates Morgan Romero. Fruitland's police chief told us for the first time Stacy Wandra is a suspect in the little boy's disappearance. His wife Sarah was previously charged with failure to report Michael's death, but that charge was dropped several months later, though she remains a suspect. Now, along with the Wandras, police labeled 2 men who lived with them, Adrian Lucian and Brandon Shirtliff, suspects who absolutely know what happened to Michael. 5 years old at the time, Michael disappeared from his Fruitland home on Southwest 9th Street on July 27, 2021. In November of 2022, we were there as crews searched and excavated the property where those 4 suspects lived, just 2-minute drive from the Vaughn's home. Police said they had credible information from someone living in the Wanderer's house that Michael's body was there. Human remains, dogs alerted, but ultimately Michael wasn't found. Police believe Michael was buried in the yard and then moved.
That sounds like a red herring.
Yeah, and real quick, I wanted to let you guys know that another YouTube creator, when this news broke, and I remember watching it live as it broke when they were, put the excavator in the backyard and all that. It was live on the news. Another creator went live with it immediately. Michael Vaughn's mother did not know that was going on, and she found out through YouTube. Can you imagine?
You can.
Yeah, we just got to be so much more careful.
Just respectful. Doesn't matter
Yes.
who has the information first, folks. It doesn't matter. Just find the most credible person that can report on information and stick with them. Doesn't matter when they get it. It's the fact that they have integrity when they report it. That
Yes.
irritates me so much. Ugh. That's terrible.
Fruitland police sent probable cause to the Payette County prosecutor last summer to be presented to a grand jury. Police Chief J.D. Huff says a grand jury hasn't convened yet, but they will soon. Although that case centers around the Wanderers and their roommates, Stacy tells us he knows nothing about Michael's abduction.
He lies.
Stacy Wanderer.
Oh, he's a huge liar.
S-T-A-C-E-Y.
It's been 2 months since Stacy Wanderer was released from federal custody, convicted of a gun crime, unrelated to the disappearance of little Michael Vaughn. And what have you been doing since?
I've been trying to live my life the best way I can.
Stacy agreed to interview with me to, quote, clear his name.
I have no reason to hide anything from anybody. I'm not that type of person. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything, and I will tell you an honest answer to it.
Were you involved in the disappearance of Michael Vaughn?
No,
Why do police think you were?
I have no idea.
Stacy thinks law enforcement's case may hinge on Adrian Lucian, one of the men living with Stacy and his wife at the time Michael disappeared. One of the men police are calling a suspect. Any clues or evidence that could point to that, from your knowledge?
No. Okay. I would never have thought Sarah or Brendan or Adrian would. Maybe Adrian, but I wouldn't have thought Sarah or Brendan would have ever done something like this. I was not even home at the night of the disappearance. I know that at that nighttime, Sarah, Brandon, and I had left to CUNA to go recover his vehicle.
Elaborate on that day a little bit more. You said you were working?
Yeah, so I did a taxi ride from Ontario to Boise. I know that I was gone a good portion of the day, from like 1 p.m. in the afternoon to like about 4. Spent some time with a former coworker or boss that I used to work for. I think I spent maybe an hour and a half, and then had come back home. And the neighborhood was completely solitude. It was quiet.
Stacy claims he, Brandon, and Sarah left their house and headed to CUNA to tow Brandon's car around 5:30 to 6 p.m. on July 27th, 2021. Brandon blew a spark plug and couldn't drive it, he says. Fruitland police believe Monkey went missing between 6:40 and 7 p.m. that night.
When we got back, I think about between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, we noticed there was an excessive amount of people out in the community walking around the neighborhood. We had stopped and asked what was going on, and they said that a boy had been abducted or been taken, and it was news to me, and it was news to Sarah, what it seemed like, and Brandon. We got home, Brandon and Sarah decided they were going to go look for the boy, and I was in the process of getting the vehicle detached from the truck because it was taking up the whole length of the street pretty much.
Stacy later clarified to me he wasn't initially told Michael was abducted, just that he was missing. And where was Adrian that day?
Adrian and Brandon and Sarah all took a trip to Boise in the morning before I did my taxi ride. It was Adrian wanted to go see his kid.
He claims Adrian stayed in either Boise or Nampa all night. Is that what they told you, or do you know that to be true for a fact?
I mean, that's just what I'm going based off of. I mean, I was told the same thing that's, all over. I wasn't with them.
Human cadaver dogs are highly reliable. Why did police tell you that human cadaver dogs pinged on your property at that home?
They didn't really give an explanation. They just said that the dogs had hit around the property. But I mean, there was nothing. I don't even know how that's even feasible because like I said, I've never even heard of this kid. I've never seen this kid, never knew anything about him.
Police said that they believe Michael's body was buried there and then moved. Can you think of any time that his body would have been buried there and then moved? Does anything stand out to you?
Not at all. They were saying that he was buried by the shed. Makes absolutely no sense. There's been no dig marks. There's
You
no
believe him,
trench
Tara?
marks. There's nothing.
No,
I didn't think
It
so.
was a complete
not a
gas area.
damn
Could it
bit.
have happened when
His
you weren't
body
around
language
and it
says
was potentially
otherwise.
covered up?
It could have, very possibly. I just know that I wasn't around for any of it. I have no idea. I would like to know what happened to him.
They did say that they recovered several
Iris.
pieces of evidence at your home and on your property. Do you know what those pieces of evidence were?
Well, it's news to me.
The day after our interview,
He was playing with something.
Stacy gave a YouTuber a new piece of information.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to recollect as best as I can for you.
He, Brandon, and Sarah pulled over to put power steering fluid in his car right after they
I
left
believe
for
this
Kuna
was
the
on
day
Crime
Michael was
Lines and
abducted.
Lies.
He says they saw a child playing by himself on the sidewalk down the street around the corner from the Vaughn's home.
The kid that I saw did not depict Michael. I mean, he wasn't like a little kid. You know what I mean? Like he was. That's why I said it didn't concern me at all that he was out and about doing his thing.
Stacy says he doesn't know what's in the probable cause affidavit police sent to prosecutors. The one police say centers around him, Sarah, Adrian, and Brandon. Do you think police have anything on you or your wife?
I personally know for a fact they don't have anything against me or on me. I have no knowledge. I wasn't even home. I have no knowledge of who this little boy is, his whereabouts, or anything about him.
In his interview with the YouTuber, Stacy said his attorney told him he's no longer a person of interest in Michael's abduction. Chief Huff tells me that's not true. When I called Stacy's attorney to get a straight answer, his attorney told me, quote, "I have no comment at this time," and hung up. I also reached out to Michael's mom, Brandy Neal, to let her know about this interview airing. She was appreciative and said the most important thing in the world is to get Michael home.
He sits on a throne of lies.
Yeah,
His
so
body
that's such a
language.
sad case. Michael Vaughn went missing right about the same time Summer Wells did. Summer Wells' case really caught wind, especially on YouTube. There's a whole Summer Wells community. Michael's, unfortunately, didn't catch on quite as much as Summers did, so didn't get quite the attention. Both cases are still not solved, and both children still have not been found 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you will, share the pictures. I do have, let's see, I think I already showed it earlier too.
Yeah.
Let's see, where is it? Don't know.
So a couple of things while she's looking for that. When you are looking at people who are talking and you want to know if they're telling the truth or not, there's a couple things to look for. Where are their hands positioned at? Yes, it's cold. She was clearly wrapped up in a coat and mittens, but she's also see-through. She can't hold her own body temperature. That man can. His hands were hiding in his pockets. When you hide your hands, it's typically because you are hiding the truth. And if that's not enough for you because it looked like it was cold outside, it didn't really look to be that cold because you couldn't see their breath. If you will look at his feet, one of his foot, and particularly the one that's closer to the person he's being interviewed by, is cocked underneath him, while the other one is flat. That's it. When you are confident in what you're talking about, pay attention to yourselves. When you talk confidently about something you know very well, you're flat-footed, standing straight and tall, or you're flat-footed, sitting with both feet, receiving about the same amount of pressure. There's something your body does, specifically when you're lying. That dude is lying all over, everywhere. He's just throwing up lies, completely lying. He's got information he's not sharing with her, but he was made to feel special. So he's going to tell her what he thinks she wants to hear. Meanwhile, he goes on YouTube and shares a whole, oh yeah, we saw this kid, but it didn't really look like the boy, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it makes me look innocent. Also look at his eyebrows and his your brow lines. They were not activated. Big sign. He's a liar. I'll digress now.
And that's what Tara has to say. He's a liar. Well, that's pretty much what everybody else thinks too. Yeah, his story changed every day. He did make his YouTube rounds, and in those rounds, oh my word, his story was kind of all over the place. So I think that the police have nailed this down. They know who did this, but maybe finding Michael's body is a holdup. I'm not real sure what they're missing that they can't bring charges forth yet. But not only do we need charges brought when that time is right, because we want them to do it right, regardless of how long it takes, but we still want Michael to be found and brought home to his
Yes.
mom. And that one last thing I'd like to say on Michael Vaughn's case, and let me see, where did I put that? Where? Oh, I know. So Michael's mom, Brandy, was just recently diagnosed with stage 3 liver disease. So while going through all of this and having a child missing and not knowing where he's at, what happened to him, is there ever going to be any justice for her little boy? She now has stage 3 liver disease. If you know who Brandy Neal is, she is a very, very strong woman, but no doubt, much like myself, behind closed doors, it's a struggle. And they're a young family, young to me anyway. And so they do have a holiday wish list set up. And let me see if I don't think I can copy that. Let me see. Let's just see if I can drop. There we go. I can drop it in the chat. There's just some little things because they do have they have a little girl, and there are some items on there for her as well. So don't feel obligated, but if you'd like to help the Vaughan family, there's our holiday wish list. Crime Lines and Lies. I know everybody has their opinions, but we keep that of other creators kind of off this channel. Has interviewed Stacey Wandra excessively. And she also has interviewed and spoken with Michael's mother, Brandy, at great lengths, almost daily. So I just want to let you guys know, in the morning, I am going on Crime Lines and Lies with Brooks to discuss Monkey's case. And my hope is that I will learn more about it, and that we can just get information, his picture, their pictures, whatever it takes for that one person to finally speak out that has that one missing piece of the puzzle. And if you guys would do that, I'd truly appreciate it. You can Google Michael Vaughn flyer, and you can find them all over Google, and just share to your social media, and that helps. Okay, so I think that's it on Michael. Thank you guys for staying with us on that.
It's important to point out other cases, in my opinion.
Yes.
Especially one with a little boy goes missing versus little girl, and she gets all the attention, and they should all get the same attention. They really
They
should.
should. And he's such an adorable little boy. Oh my gosh.
He
He's so
is.
adorable.
He reminds me of my elder son when he was that age. I mean, that's where I was like, God, that kid looks familiar. I'm like, oh my God, it's my kid. That looks like my kid. I had a little tow head with that pretty smile and the blue eyes, and it just kind of lights up a room look to him. So that
Yes.
definitely
He
hits
looks
my heart.
ornery. He looks ornery. So I can totally
That
see
checks.
why he went out a door. I get it,
That checks. Because my firstborn would have done the same damn thing. Hello, Bojangles. We haven't seen that name in a moment.
Yeah. Hi, Bojangles.
And Nighthawk. We got some great people in the chat tonight. Get to the ducking point. The local hemorrhoid is here as well as far as last night. Patrick, Just Irish. There's a bunch of great people in the chat.
Yes.
I'm glad they're here. They make the chat perfect.
All right. So let's get into Veronica and Jillian's case.
Here we
The first
go.
thing I think I'm going to say on it is that Tara and I did have the autopsy reports. As soon as they were released, I got the emails. We chose to not share those.
Correct.
After this incident with my daughter, I had thought that at some point I might share them. Now, obviously, things that are in the trial, I'm going to feel obligated to report back to you guys on those things. But there's not going to be videos and, things like that. So it's going to be our notes. If you want the details, you can find those elsewhere. But like I said, we didn't plan on sharing them anyway. Then there was a part of me that kind of considered only sharing the what people think they need to know parts.
Mhm.
After this happened with my daughter, you guys, I can't do that. I just can't. I cannot imagine if somebody shared my child's autopsy report online. This video will get thousands of views. If I put autopsy report in it, it probably have 10,000 views. Man, I just can't. I can't be that way. I don't want to be that way. I can't do that to their family. Tara can't. And so that's the way we're going to leave things as far as the autopsy report. So that's why you haven't heard from us about those. You're not going to
Correct.
hear it from us.
They're quite honestly, they're graphic.
Mhm.
They're medical. There's a lot of medical terms in there, and all of the YouTube creators out there, podcasters,
Even trying to pronounce the words. I
they
mean,
can't. Even there's one word that's not adipose tissue. That was one word that one YouTube creator couldn't even pronounce very well.
right.
And it's like, you know what? This is
If
not
you can't
our
pronounce
area.
words, yeah, and not to be
This is
mean or rude, it's kind of like some, constructive criticism maybe, but if you're going to read things like that, at least know how to pronounce those
right.
words and what those words mean. Otherwise, why are you even reading it? What
Correct.
how is it helping anybody? Really, it's just hurting the family that's going to see that pop up again and again and
You
again.
know, it's for clicks and views, and I get it, right? You want to have the juicy information, the sexy information, but quite honestly, since we're getting ready to go into the case, we already knew what
We
happened.
did.
They were
Yeah, we did.
stabbed. That's it. They
Mhm.
were stabbed from behind. Veronica had some forward-facing stabs. That's it. That's all anybody needs to know. You don't need all the scientific information because you don't know it enough to
Don't even understand it anyway, and
correct.
Tara
And if
and I
you
don't either. We're not
correct.
medical doctors, so for us to try to go through this, full of medical jargon
It's not worth
autopsy
it.
report is it's just not
No,
worth it.
it's worth saying that Veronica did receive more injury than Jillian did. Does that
Mhm.
make either loss any more important than the other? No. Veronica was the target and Jillian was collateral damage when you have to
Yes.
look at it from a non-emotional point of view. That sucks to say because I know these families. I know Veronica's family. I know Jillian's family, and it sucks to say that out loud. And I will apologize to them later because I do not want to deface the value of their children's
Mhm.
lives at all. But for the true crimers out there, we know what it means when there's a knife involved in a crime. We understand
Yeah.
what that means. And we understand what a target means. And we understand what collateral damage means. Those are the important terms, not the subclavian, ventricular, superficial,
Right.
lateral, posterior side. Like, we don't get those terms. Jillian was stabbed from behind, and Veronica received her injuries from behind, and a couple in the front. They both received head injuries. They were both attacked on scene. They both passed on scene. There was no second site. There was no other site other than the burial site. That's it. And I guarantee you that when we go to the prelims and Kari and I take these notes, we're going to come up with the exact same information.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
it. And so I cannot be any more passionate about it. And I guess I wasn't real excited when Kari's like, "Hey, we're gonna do this live with these things," and this is before her situation. I'm like, "Oh, I really like these families. I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
I'm not excited. I'm not. I will figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'm a wordsmith,
Yeah,
and we'll
and
figure
I
it out."
don't think we, really struggled with the decision necessarily. That is what was expected of us, I think,
A
and
little
so
bit.
we wanted to please you guys and provide you with the information and the knowledge that you want, but at the same time be respectful to the family, and we just couldn't do both at the same time, I
Yes.
think, with this as far as
Yes.
the autopsy
Yeah.
report.
But we have what we need.
Right.
We needed when in true crime, you don't need all the gory details. You need those for legal purposes. So the lawyers are involved in that. We need to know the motive. We need to know the means. We need to know the opportunity. That's what we need to know to make this to paint this picture for true crime. That's what true crimers really want to know. None of us have gone to Forensic Files or Ashley Flowers or Delia D'Ambra or any other true crimers and been like, "Ooh, tell me all the medical knowledge you know about this." No, we want just give it to us hard. What are
Mhm.
the straight up facts? That's it. And so that's what That's where that's where we're going to stand at, and I think that's the most respectful thing. The families get
thank
it,
you.
and keep in mind too, guys. The families. I have dogs everywhere tonight, so if
This
you
is so
hear them,
cute.
just enjoy them because I'm dog sitting for friends tonight. But keep in mind too that families are avoiding other creators because of what they're putting out there, but they're coming to us because we put the family first, which are values that I think most of us can get behind. That family comes first. They've appreciated and really they've been super I say appreciative, but there's another word for it that I can't come up with. But they're happy to know that we're not going to put that information out there because, quite honestly, some of them, they have the information, they just won't read it. And I've advised a few family members, just don't.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not worth it. It's besides not understanding it. If you're, I think in pictures, not worth the picture, not worth it at all. So with that being said, we can
All
move off our
right.
soapboxes onto the next
Yes.
thing. You're
Yeah, we could do a whole live on that soapbox for sure. Our
now we
chat would
can.
probably gladly join us on that, especially with what's going on YouTube right now, which is absolute insanity. Just Irish, regarding sealing those, yes, I have thought about that. I probably will do something like that just because I know how YouTube can be. And you know, I try to mind my P's and Q's and stay on my own little part of the Kari Moody world over here, but you never know when one day somebody's going to get pissed and they're going to try to use things against you and twist and turn and yeah,
Gee, do they? They
I
do
just
that?
don't advise that when
They
it comes
do
to one of
that?
my kids.
Nobody
Yeah.
does that on YouTube. Surely
Right?
nobody on YouTube does that kind of thing. We're all respectful on YouTube, right?
Never.
Yeah, right. See if I
All right,
can.
where's my thingy here? There we go.
There we go. Oh, we're gonna do this.
We're gonna do this.
Do,
All right. So the first thing I want to start with, we're just going to kind of go back over some of the important details as we prepare for the preliminary that's going to begin in less than 2 weeks now, 2 weeks yesterday. So this is the affidavit for search warrant. I chose this one because it has a specific part in it, but this is the search warrant for Beasley's property. Okay, and so this is. A rural property in Texas County, Oklahoma, with one residence, one round top shed, multiple smaller outbuildings, and approximately 970 acres of pasture land. Man, that's a lot of land.
Oh my gosh.
I'd be happy with 10% of that. Or shoot, 9%.
Take a 1% at this rate.
So
no,
all
and he was
within-
leasing some of that to
Yes.
Tad, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all within the county of Texas, state of Oklahoma, there is now being concealed certain evidence. The bodies of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley, clothing worn by Butler to include a gray screen printed t-shirt, blue jean denim shorts, dark colored socks, and gray Hey Dude shoes. Clothing worn by Kelley to include a long sleeve blue plaid shirt, a ring, a pink red V-neck shirt, blue jean capri length pants, white low top shoes, cell phone owned by Butler, jewelry worn by Butler or Kelley, a cell phone owned by Jilian, a handgun with silver slide and black handle loaded with a full magazine of .380 hollow point ammunition, one live round in the chamber, and a cloth holster, stun guns, oil dry or kitty litter used for liquid absorption, trace evidence, biological DNA evidence, digital photographs, spatial scans, and all other evidence of the crime of murder and assault and battery with a deadly weapon. And so then they go on to the factual basis of this. On March 30th, 2024, Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley were traveling to the Four Corners location of Highways 64 and 95 in Texas County, Oklahoma, for Butler to do a child custody exchange with Tiffany Adams at 10 a.m. They were driving in Butler's vehicle. Adams currently has custody of Butler's children. Butler and Kelley did not arrive at the Four Corners location, and their vehicle was found just west of Highway 95 on County Road L, which is approximately 5 miles north of the Four Corners location, and that was found at approximately 12:09 p.m. Law enforcement was contacted, and the OSBI was requested to conduct an investigation. Blood was located on the ground beside Butler's car, and it had either oil dry or kitty litter poured on it to absorb liquid. And I've showed you guys those pictures that I took of that. Through investigation, it was determined that Butler and Kelley arrived at Highway 95 and County Road L at 9:40 a.m. Both of their phones stopped transmitting data and went dead at 9:42 a.m. Neither Kelley nor Butler nor were their cell phones found at the location where Butler's vehicle was found. All the clothing and jewelry worn by Butler and Kelley and the Taurus handgun owned by Jilian were not present at the location where the vehicles were found. OSBI investigation showed that Adams purchased 3 prepaid cell phones from Walmart in Guyman on February 13, 2024. Search warrants for information related to location services and phone usage were completed for each device. It was learned that all 3 phones were at the area where Butler's car was located and the last known location of Butler and Kelley at the time of their disappearance. After their disappearance between 10:16 a.m. and 10:35 a.m., it was determined that the phone numbers that belonged to them were at a property owned by Jamie Beasley below a dam in the pasture where fresh dirt work was located. Concrete was also moved from a location near Beasley's residence, approximately 150 to 200 yards to below the dam, where it was discovered that a hole had been dug and filled back in. It is believed that the moved concrete is in the hole. The location where Butler and Kelley disappeared from and where Butler's vehicle was found is approximately 8.5 miles from the location below the dam on Beasley's property, giving a drive time from the location of where Butler's vehicle was found to Beasley's property well within the 34 minutes between the time of their phone stopping transmission and the prepaid phone numbers arriving at the dam on Beasley's property. Beasley advised that the dirt work was done with a skid steer by Tad Colum on March 29, 2024, and was possibly finished on the 30th in the morning hours. Beasley knew that Colum left his skid steer on his property the night of March 29th, and when he awoke the next morning at approximately noon, he awoke at almost noon, the skid steer was gone. Colum rents the pasture property owned by Beasley for cattle grazing and has access to it at any time. On March 28th or 29th, Colum asked Beasley if he could cut a tree down, remove a stump, bury some concrete, do dirt work where the concrete pile was, and blow the dam. Adams was with Colum at Beasley's property when that conversation was had. In a contact with Colum, it was learned from Colum that Adams is his significant other. Beasley agreed to allow Colum to do the work. Colum brought up the idea of doing the work to Beasley. And then it just says that they had probable cause to believe that the bodies and other listed evidence would be found on that property. And then this is the property.
Yep. So a couple things to point out in that there are 2 locations of interest. One where the car was found and 2 where the dirt work was done, which is where the bodies would eventually be found at as well. 2 locations. No matter how you slice that tomato, it only cuts into 2 parts. That's it. And I'm kind of dispersing some other ideas out there. For folks who got out there after the fact when the car was gone, not only was the car gone, evidence is going to disappear with the car because the car is evidence. That after a crime scene, after the crime scene's been processed, anything, they're going to leave behind minimal as much as possible. So you're not going to see a whole bunch of DNA material left behind, including blood. So these are some things to keep in mind when looking at these things. Oh, look, it's Ashley. Is that Ash? What is her name? Ashley what?
It is.
Okay.
Ashley Banfield.
Banfield, thank you.
All right. So how do I put this? we don't share very many News Nation videos and stuff, and that's because we know for a fact that they're not always very accurate.
Correct.
And so that's why if you ever try to post a News Nation link or any link for that matter in the Facebook group, it has to be approved manually because, well, we just don't want just any links being posted in there. But this one I do want to play for you because it just gives a little bit more information. And I know CB said Enton sucks. People don't like Ashley, but it does have some really good information and mostly all factual. So let's take a listen to little Ashley here. And
Little
interrupt me anytime, Kara.
I'm not a fan of News Nation. I've been so teed off with their reporting. I'm not a fan of any of the mainstream media that's been covering this case
Right.
in any angle. And I've had a couple of conversations with folks, and Kari's had to be like, you can just calm your resting bitch attitude down.
Yeah, they've not been real good.
Oh,
And
but that's okay.
I actually interviewed with Ashley, so I know how her show is too. So there's that. All right, but this is pretty factual, and it's not just her talking. So
National correspondent Brian Engine drove out there today, did a lot of looking about and asking questions, and he's live with me now. So, Brian, take me to that property. Tell me everything you know about the land, the landowner, and what you were able to see.
Yeah, first of all, actually, bear with me with the weather because it's been crazy here on the Oklahoma-Kansas line. We had a wind advisory today. There was a tornado last night, and now there's another big storm moving in. So it's going to get a little wet, but I want to get to all of our points. Yes, I went to the house and the area where the bodies were discovered. It's about 8.5 miles or so from where the mom's car was left in a very rural area. It is a piece of land that Tad was leasing out from an owner there. And there was a barn there. The bodies were discovered near a dam. There was some digging, and that's when they found them. The owner I met with, he was crying when he was telling me the story. Totally shocked by all of this. Can't believe it. Can't believe this happened on his land. Was shocked when the police showed up and started digging. But that is where those women were found, Ashley.
Okay, so now tell me, there's so much I want you to unload here, but you also got an interview today with Tad Cullum's business partner, who happens to be a municipal judge, who was coincidentally there at Tad's house while Tad's house was being raided. And then there's been a big twist tonight. Tell me everything that's happened.
There is, and I'm going to get to the twist in a second because this is really crazy and goes back to the point that people here are very scared to talk. But yes, we talked to the municipal judge here. Happened to be walking by, got in the car with me and chatted. He is a good friend of Tad. He is a business associate. They were working together. He was at Tad's house when the SWAT team showed up. You remember Nancy Lou had that crazy video. The SWAT team showed up.
I find
and he
this
was there. He
judge
had a
situation
gun pointed
fascinating.
at his face, he says. And he also knows a little bit about this group. The God's Misfits, the religious cult group. I asked the judge about it. Listen to what he told me, Ashley.
When's the last time you saw Tad?
I was there when they raided it.
You were there?
Tad and I have been working together the last month in a business, and I was down there when it was raided.
What was that like?
Being with a military past in Vietnam, it brought back some really bad memories. Looking down the barrel of those rifles, it was very hard for me. It brought back a lot of
Night
memories.
traveling, Teresa. Thank you for
A
being
lot of
here.
bad things.
Did you ever get a bad vibe from Tad?
No. Tad was one of the nicest, funniest. I seen him almost on a daily basis this last month. We were working together. I couldn't even believe he was involved in it.
What about Tiffany?
I didn't see her a lot. I've known her for years. Always thought she was just a little bit out in left field. But again, just never believed that.
I think a lot of people describe her that way.
According to the affidavit, they were involved in this group, God's Misfits.
Yes.
What do you know about that?
Never even heard of it until this come up. Knew zero Nothing about it.
And what have you learned?
To me, and what I've heard, and I can't say this for fact, what I've heard, it's kind of like a cult. A lot of cults use God as their background to justify what they're doing. To me, that's what it sounds like.
Are they anti-government?
Very, very anti-government.
Mhm.
Okay, so in a very strange twist, Ashley, I just was notified that judge was forced to resign after doing that interview with me this afternoon. The mayor, he was appointed by the mayor, and the mayor basically said, "I'm not happy you did the interview and talked about any of this," and said, "You know, we want your resignation," and he had to submit a letter of resignation. Keep in mind, he didn't talk at all about anything in a professional sense. He's just a municipal judge. He has nothing to do with the case at all. Just goes back to like why people are not wanting to talk around here, how powerful these suspects are, and now this judge is out of a job just for telling us that story this afternoon.
And again, that story has absolutely nothing to do with the murder or the evidence or anything, just the experience of what the arrest was. It's astounding. And I'm sorry, Brian, you're getting pelted with rain. I can't let you go, though. Did this judge know anything about Paul Grice, that fifth man that we are mystified about? Does he know him? Does he know why he wasn't arrested? Any info?
Yeah, huh?
No, he knew absolutely nothing about him, which is interesting because he knows pretty much everybody in town. Everybody we've asked for the most part doesn't know much about him. I mean, you touched on it earlier, though. He was also, according to authorities, part of God's Misfits, the group. He was apparently involved in this plot to kill Veronica back earlier this year. So we know that from the affidavit, but we're not really having an easy time getting other information on him and why he wasn't arrested. Is he perhaps now cooperating with the investigation? We haven't been able to nail that down at this point.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Well,
Do I
you are
dare?
so welcome, Ashley.
Yeah, she
but
is.
the judge thing fascinates me. I like kind of, I mean, I have my thoughts. I don't really I don't want to share publicly, but I remember when that live that Brian did with him came out when the judge first talked. And then I remember thinking, oh my God, they went to eat at that same coffee shop every morning that was literally like a block from where I was staying. And then I was in hindsight terrified because Tad Colum in person is a huge dude. And he does look scary. I don't know about this
to
funny
be
and nice
fair,
part.
everybody's huge to you. To be fair,
Okay, that's a fair point. But the guy
just
is,
saying.
the dude
I'm
is
6'1".
big
I'm
though.
like, yeah, he's like the size of one of my family. So a couple things about this guy. First off, flipping lies left and right again. Not trusting this judge as far as I can throw him. Second off, anybody who wasn't on these five people's bad side, of course they're going to think they're great people. If you're not a target, you are awesome. They're awesome. But if you're a target, you're probably a lousy human being. So that's one of the things that I really dislike about mainstream media is they're like, he's so great, he's so wonderful. Really, tell us about your relationship with you. Is he a threat to you? What do you got? Well, we're business partners, so the better he does, the better I do. It's like it just is like absolute shenanigans. Absolute
It feels
shenanigans.
yucky, doesn't it? It feels
Yeah,
yucky.
it does. And that dude, I think I want to say he was a part of the Misfits because I think I've seen a picture with him.
I think I have a picture that
I
possibly
think
has
I
him
think
in
we
it.
were I'm thinking we're thinking of the
Mhm.
same picture. I'm pretty sure we received a picture of
Yeah.
him. It looks like a baptism of sorts, and he looks like
Mhm.
I think he looks like he's one of the ones performing the baptism. I have to go back and look at
Yeah.
the photo, but I remember seeing that interview. Kari, do you remember that conversation we had? And you're like, hey, this judge here. I'm like, oh my God, that looks familiar. And I sent you the picture. You're like, where the hell did you get that from? I'm like,
Yep.
internet. It was a pro tip type of thing. So I think he's lying out his backside, but you've got to lie if you want to save your skin, especially if you know something you're not supposed to know. So if you're there when they're raiding, I don't know, man. But you normally meet at the coffee shop, and now you're
Every morning.
and now you're
Every
meeting at his
morning.
home. Like, yeah, buddy. I don't know. You don't look so good.
No,
And for him to have to resign, it's like, yeah, people It's not like he just did an interview and the city got pissed with him. There's more to that. Because he had a case to sue if he wanted to, as a judge being laid off for no
Right.
reason other than going online. So I'm like, yeah, complete shenanigans. Try again, buddy.
Yeah, CB, the school is used by Alumni
Yeah.
Association for the get-togethers, but I was also told very early on that a couple of people handed in their keys,
Yep.
and that the school they were meeting inside the school.
There is, yes. It's
But a couple of
absolute
ladies
fact.
or a couple of people on that association turned in their keys. They wanted to wash their hands of whatever was
Yep.
going on. That was before the arrest even, I believe. It was very, very early on.
Yes, and the Twombly's lived next door to that school, which is one of the reasons they had access to it.
Right.
So
And
it's
Bojangles said that isn't Forbes in the picture. So yeah, we're not sure. I mean, it does look like him. I was able to send it to a few people that were able to narrow down most everybody except for one, I believe. So not really sure, but I just pinned the link. If any of you would like to come up and discuss this case with us, we'd love to have you on panel. And then I'm going to play this. I'm going to speed this next one up because it was one of the longer ones, but I think it did provide quite a bit of information. And I'm just going to be honest, it saved me from having to go through and do a bunch of slides. And I let Brian do the work for us.
Oh, we're back to that. I'm
Yes.
excited.
Where the heck am I though? So I'm going to speed this up though.
I don't know, I may take you up on that, CB.
And knows all the ins and outs, but
He says he
really
can.
started with
He bets he could look at that picture and
with
point
you.
everybody out. May have to take him up on that.
sort of was figuring out that that was going to be the motive.
Well, you know,
Oh, it's one of those things. Hold on.
I looked at the court documents and I could see that there were issues about custody, but I also looked up criminal records and I found out that the poor Veronica Butler's husband, or not husband, her boyfriend, the father of her children, was in rehab, and that he had an extensive criminal past. And then I looked up his father, and just as we started to figure out what was going on, we realized that this had been a very bitter, like really bitter custody battle, and that the grandma, the paternal grandma, that's the mom of the boyfriend, Wrangler Rickman, the paternal grandmother had really wanted custody, and that it had been months since Veronica had seen her kids, and she was on the cusp, about to have a hearing where she was going to get rid of supervised visitation, at least according to her lawyer, her custody lawyer, her family law lawyer. And that hearing never happened. And ironically, the date of the hearing was the same date as the arraignment of the 4 defendants who are charged.
Yeah, so she was supposed to be in court. You talked to Veronica's family.
Just Irish, that's so sad. He used to be like her best friend. She used to always point out how they knew each other, right?
Lawyer.
Wait, who's Betty?
What was he like? What have you? I mean, I can't imagine.
Oh,
You
I
know who
got it.
Betty
Yeah,
is?
as soon as I said it, it clicked. But who's the brunette in this one here?
This is another News Nation person.
I'm excited. I
This
can
is
throw
not
up.
Betty by far.
No, it's no, it's not.
Oh, gosh.
But
Sarah
that just
doesn't
highlighted
even
my day.
watch her, but she knows a lot about her because I complain and bitch about her.
Oh,
almost
I've
daily.
tried to watch her. There's only a couple of YouTube creators out there. I'm like, nails on chalkboard, can't do it, but we'll try to choke this down. And then Betty's one of them, unfortunately.
CB Slinger said that's the producer. Okay, so that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Boss.
Thank you, CB.
Okay, thank you.
He's all over this.
Yeah, CB, grab that link. Come up here.
No joke.
Imagine as a lawyer, like you're representing someone and then they get murdered.
It's kind of like the worst case scenario. And everybody always talks about in a custody battle how vicious and awful it can become. And the lawyer actually said that he didn't really take a lot of credence. I mean, everybody comes in hating the other side. So when he first met her, but he did say she was very prepared. She had all these notes. She'd had another lawyer since about 2019. And it just sort of, she wanted a fresh set of eyes on the case is what he told me. And then he said, when he really began to become a little concerned, which really what he called raised his eyebrows, was the fact that the father of the children had posted that the grandmother, his mother, and the Grandma Tiffany, Grandma Tiffany, who's charged with murder of Veronica and Butler and also of Jilian, the 2 women that were there, that the grandmother had threatened him if he didn't sign papers, if he didn't try to get custody. So it was, sorry guys, it's like I am a little bit on the tired side.
No,
But yeah, that's really
yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, that the grandma was trying to get custody and she threatened her son and said, you better sign these papers. I want, try to get full custody. And what actually, we also found out through sources that the grandma had alleged that the children had been sexually abused when they were in the home and under the custody of the mom, Veronica. So,
do we know if that's really true? Or was she just trying to get custody and using that as a way to persuade the judge? Or do you think that that really happened and she was just desperate to get the kids?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just know that courts take allegations like that very seriously.
Yeah.
So as soon as somebody would make an allegation like that, and it very well may have been true, but as soon as, you make an allegation like that, they're obligated to investigate. And they're obligated to protect the children. Courts take that very seriously. And we also know what happens when we don't take it very seriously and it turns out to be true. And I've covered and you covered a lot of those kinds of cases. So I'm reluctant, I'm really reticent to take a position one way or the other. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do know that the courts ordered supervised visitation and that we also found out later when Grandma Tiffany was
Is that me or is it not working?
Oh, it helps to turn the mic on? Okay.
Oh, okay.
What the producer just said about the whole children and the case, that is basically a stance Tara and I have taken. It's not up to us to make a determination, and we just prefer to leave that situation entirely alone. And mostly it's for the sake of the children because they are going to see all this stuff one day. And I don't want them to see it from me. They see it from other people, unfortunately, but I don't want them seeing it from us. So we're just staying out of that whole part.
I'm going to add on. So by staying out of it, I'm going to add on to that, Kari. What we're saying is we're staying out of it. Doesn't mean we don't have the information.
Right.
There's a lot of information we still protect hardcore. For instance, we knew the manner of passing very early on, and we protect that for the family's sake. We remain in the family first, family protection stance. We do have the understanding of what this whole silly court case thingy they're talking about is, and the producer makes a great point. Courts are obligated to investigate once they get any whiff of anything regarding children, which is the right thing to do. But we can definitively say it makes no mind. Nobody had any position to take on any judgment in this particular case, no matter what. The courts had it under control for real, which is why Veronica was getting her kids back.
Exactly.
So that's something to keep in mind. There's a reason why she was getting her kids back.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
charged along with 3 others that, they had a discussion. And one of the things that was really troubling Grandma Tiffany was that she said the children were in danger, and if Veronica got her custody returned to her, that it was going to be a problem.
Yeah, we have been really just driving around like Western Oklahoma, Kansas, for the last 4 days. And, Allison's from LA, I'm from Miami. I went to college in the country, but, neither of us live in rural areas. And people were like, oh my gosh, be careful. People are armed there, militias. I really thought 99% of the people were very, very friendly. People would talk to us. People were nervous to go on camera, but a lot of people shared their stories with us.
I think they were really friendly to Brian.
And they were friendly. Someone bought our Subway one day, a postal worker, and I insisted, no, let us buy yours. And no, we're just so happy you guys are here covering it. Someone gave us an American flag.
They were super
really
nice. I think that everybody was in
shock. They get a bad rap, kind of.
Oh, I think they totally got a bad rap because they were very nice. And the fact that people didn't want to talk on camera.
Well, what I want to say is it got a bad rap because of the news. The news gave the area a bad rap, and then we fought really hard to undo that bad rap, because I agree with what they're saying here. When I was out there, everybody was just, what I expect in Oklahoma. Everybody is super kind, very helpful, very willing to talk. Just really super nice people. So
absolutely,
they are right about that. But they created the initial initial view of what people thought of the area.
Well, it's bad enough that part of the area, the Texas Panhandle, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and that part of Southwest Kansas all get a bad rap for being quote unquote no man's land. There's a lot of unsolved crimes out there. But there's a lot of unsolved crimes all over the country, whether it be Wichita, where I'm from, Enid, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Midwest, doesn't matter where you go. It just happens to be when you go out to a super rural area. Okay, so you get a little bit of a different feel, especially when you know what's going on. But I haven't found anybody. I was broke down in Guyman when I went out there with Kari for that.
I forgot about that.
Can't believe I broke down. And
Oh,
I was
Kari luck.
God. I mean, Kari's luck is not. Y'all understand why I'm in a little bit of a let's go into panic mode because we're supposed to go back to Guyman with Kari, right? Like this is. I've been told to rent a car, by the way. But when I was broke down out there, I had them. I mean, I was expecting the dealership to come out and come help me. I mistook this poor strange man as part of the dealership. I'm like, hey, I'm Tara. I'm so and so. You must be so and so. And he's like, nope, I'm such and such. Okay. Like he was absolutely just stalled. And I'm like trying to introduce myself. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. I need to go. And the person I was with, or Joe was with me. He's like, yeah, that's not the dude from the dealership. I was like, oh, if this was Wichita, he'd have told me about myself and tell me what to do with myself. But he was actually really nice. Like he was just floored. Like, why is this late? And I like reached out, took his hand and shook his hand. Like I was pretty much assertive and aggressive and almost assaulting to him. Like, give me your hand. I'll shake it real quick. He's like, I just got to go. Like,
Right.
So they were not aggressive. They're not mean. They're not trying to bury your body out in the middle of nowhere just because you show
No.
up. That's not how it operates.
They don't want messed with either, though. I mean,
No,
just
they
like any of the
don't.
rest of us, but
Correct.
and maybe a little bit more so. You know, they live in that area for a reason. They just don't want messed with like that. So, I fully understood that. But everybody there was really, really, really nice.
Oh, they're great. Absolutely wonderful. I've been invited to a
Camera
couple of
initially-
houses.
Yes.
in this was based on the fact that they didn't know who had done this. There was a lot of fear. It's a tiny community. They all know each other. And there was a lot of fear going on. And that's not an unusual thing when something like this happens in any community, but especially in a small community or small rural community like this. The people are reluctant until somebody is charged with the offense. We saw something similar you did, especially in Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah, definitely. This felt even more rural to me than Moscow.
Oh, yeah,
This is
totally.
really rural. I mean, if you haven't been, I'd never been to this part of Oklahoma and Kansas, and we were in Texas too, but there's really not much there. It's just pasture land.
There was a lot of overlap.
ranchers.
We had to keep checking to see what state we were in
Yeah.
because you automatically,
Yeah.
all of a sudden we found ourselves in Kansas. Wait a minute, we were just in.
Right.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of miles on the rental. We were driving. I don't think I've ever gotten so many tanks of gas in 4 days. I mean, because we were staying far away, driving all these different states.
Well, the people, this is the interesting thing about this story particularly,
That's
is that
a
this is a very
story as
small
well.
community, and we were told by many sources and many people we spoke to, and even one of the people that lived near where the bodies of the two women were found, he said, like, we are a community that looks out for each other, that we care about each other because we kind of have to, because they're so far away from each other and so far away from help. If somebody is injured or something happening with their neighbor, if there's problems with the cattle or problems with the farms, they help each other out. So while it's a community with tons of land, I mean, you could see forever, and you could see like 5 farms, but they're miles away from each
so
other.
flat,
right? So while you could see forever, you have to realize that it's a very close community, and they were very frightened.
And in the affidavit for the arrests, it came out that the suspects were all in this group called God's Misfits, which really, it was a very salacious, sexy headline for the media, I think, for that to come out. And we looked into it, and there is this group that exists, and it is underground and it's anti-government. But for the most part, I really believe most people told us they never really heard about it, and I believed them.
I believe them too. And by the way, this was based on the affidavit that was used to determine to get probable cause to arrest the 4 defendants, or the 4 suspects, but now the 4 defendants. So you have to ask yourself, it was based on the daughter of one of the defendants, Cora Twombly, and the daughter said that they belonged to this group, and then she named 7 members. And then when we went around and we asked every single person we talked to, so we're up to like maybe 20, 30 people, nobody had ever heard about it. And that's pretty much, I think that they are religious people.
Yeah.
It's based on religion, but in every part of the country, but this is a considerate place.
Yeah, and to
but
be
it's more-
anti-government.
I feel like they have listened to all of our lives because like
Probably
everything
so.
she's saying is kind of what I said in my interview with Ashley as well. I
Yep.
feel like they listened to all of our lives and took
Yep.
notes.
So one of the things I have been corrected on, and because I threw a big fit and been real solid on the stance of that it's not God's misfits, it's the misfits. And I had somebody come back at me like, nope, that is the God's misfits. Call them what they are. And it's like, oh, okay. But that I had been told it's not that. And so I think depending on what you do and don't know about it, what perspective you're looking at it from will determine if you see it as misfits or God's misfits. So it sounds like maybe either can be accurate. Just depends on your position as you look into it or look out from it.
Yes. Kitten is driving me nuts over here.
There's animals all over the podcast tonight between the dog that had to be loved on.
Place like that.
But it's not, most of the people, and I actually saw even in court when the defendants were being, they had their bail hearing, they didn't object to the judge. I was wondering if that was going to happen if they were so I don't know. I think a lot of it was made of it. I think time will tell. We'll see how that went into the motive. But I think it's pretty clear here that we were looking at a very angry custody battle, and a battle where Grandma Tiffany was beginning to think she was going to lose, that Veronica was going to get her children back. And poor Jilian was like basically at the wrong place at the wrong time, which is like horrible.
It's so sad. I want to talk a little bit about court because we were both there. And Allison's also a lawyer, so you have an interesting perspective when it comes to court.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I've never really covered a court hearing quite like it. It's a very, very small courthouse in Texas County, Oklahoma. Security was high, metal detectors, and it was a very small, they had drones, they had
guys on the roof, they had guards on the roof, they had police on every corner of the block. Like, they were expecting a lot of trouble. There was tons of guards, policemen inside the courtroom, inside the courthouse. They were watching the elevator constantly because I got there early.
I totally agree with that.
I was late. But now I made it.
Yes, you
I was
did.
later than you.
Yeah, but so they were very concerned. And one of the prosecutors actually had a holstered gun. It's an open carry state, but I thought it was just kind of, it was a lot of high security. And there were no electronics allowed in. We had just a paper and a pen, and we had to take our hoodies off.
Yeah, I couldn't even wear my hoodie.
And it was chilly in there.
Yeah, it was. You were cold.
Yeah.
And it was a small courtroom. And so we were sitting in the front row, media in the front, and then the family of the victims were in the back. I would say there were maybe like 20 of them-ish. And it was really emotionally charged. And
everybody was very close together. You have to realize
and close
that.
to the suspects, too. They were right there. It was Veronica's father who was, saying curse words at the suspects, and the other family members were actually having to hold him back. Have you ever seen anything like that in court, to that level?
I haven't. I've heard there was a lot of sobbing going on. I've heard people crying in court. I have heard people be upset. Occasionally somebody will yell something out and the judge will go crazy and either ask them to settle down or to be removed. But I have never seen where like 3 women were holding back Veronica's father, and he was crying. Veronica, family members of both women were, upset, or friends of both women. We didn't know exactly, we're getting there, but there was a lot of crying going on, and it was just so tense because it was so horrible. And then when the defendants walked out, the dad would scream out something, and the judge just allowed him to vent. And then he started to look like he was going to lunge, and he was close enough to lunge. And then the guards moved into that area to make sure that nothing was going to happen.
Yeah. And I think everybody, I kind of got the sense like the judge even was just, it was just so sad for the families and everything they've been through. It was almost like he was just letting them kind of do their thing a little bit,
I gotta say, the thing that struck me and the thing that I talked to you about, even when we were afterwards, is just, it was surreal to think that these 2 women were going to just pick up some children, and that Jilian was just there to, to be the supervisor. She wasn't close with Veronica. They weren't best friends or anything. And then suddenly these.
I just wanted to stop real quick and say, go Clint, because I would have done the same damn thing. It would have taken every sheriff's deputy in there to restrain me, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
He did a good job restraining himself, and he is still allowed in the courtroom. He's just has to sit on the back row. So I'm excited to see him next. Keep saying next month because I'm stuck back in the middle of November, folks. I don't know why, but that's where I'm at. But the other than Clint, most of the family sits up front. A lot of them want as close as possible. They're at that point of, I want to glare at you, and if I can throw daggers at you from my eyeballs, this is what I'm going to do. But they also want to make sure they can absorb as much as possible. Poor Clint's the only one that has to stay in the back, but I'm hoping we can sneak him up to the front row, but I doubt it when we get there.
Yeah. I don't blame him one bit, for sure.
Families find themselves in court facing 4 people who brutally murdered their family members or their friends.
And in such close
It's so close to them, and watching them walk out and show absolutely little or no emotion.
And they were really showed no emotion. You were obsessed with Grandma Tiffany's braid.
Well, it looked like Grandma Tiffany had done a lot of work. She's for somebody who'd been in
tight braid, though.
No, but it was more about the fact that she had fixed herself up.
Yeah.
Usually people that are in prison for a few days, they look more like Kari.
Trance or something, almost like she knew that this day was coming.
That's probably what I think the motivation is going to be when they, to the extent that being in that group, the anti-government group, I think that they thought that these children are in danger, and they use, God and religion as a justification. That's probably what I think the motivation is going to be when they, to the extent that the prosecution comes up and tries to say this was the motive for the killings. But it's just bizarre because the town is in shock because the people that, these 4 defendants are really embedded in the makeup of this entire community. Everybody knows everybody. If you call one person, this would happen while we were calling people. I'd call one person, and a few minutes later, the other person would be like, "Oh, I heard you called my cousin. He's my cousin," and I was just, or he's my best friend, and we all went to school together. And a good portion of the people we spoke with, including neighbor that we actually got, that you interviewed, they went to school with Tiffany. They went to school with Tad. To their lovely families. And Cora's children are really great, and they show animals, and they're like good people. And frankly, Cora's daughter is the one that kind of gave the the cops all the information.
Which
that
is
they needed.
interesting. You don't always see that happen. You mentioned the neighbor. I want to play. We spoke to one neighbor who was actually neighbor of where the bodies were found.
Jared.
Yeah, Jared. I want to play a little bit of that interview just so you guys can see, and then we'll talk about it.
Do you know Paul Grace? Yeah, I know of him, and he has a young family, very nice guy. He's the kind of guy to come up, shake your hand, tell you hi. And anytime I've been around him, he's just been out cleaning and working hard and taking care of cattle. And he seems to be a good guy. My understanding is that he was taken in question, and apparently the OSBI and FBI didn't think it warranted arresting him. So I guess he's not in custody, so I have no reason to believe they had anything to do with it.
Yeah, a lot of people are questioning it just because he's named in the reports and wondering why he's the one who wasn't arrested.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I know he's a good man.
What are your thoughts on that, Tara?
Regarding Paul Grice and this
Yeah,
guy?
am I putting you on the spot?
Nope, I'll talk. It's a matter of how much you want me to say. So I've tried to reach out to this guy before. I'm not done trying. So if you're listening, Jared, let's chit chat. And I from where he's standing, right, he's got every right to say what he's saying. He's got, and a lot of people in the area had the same information to work with. They questioned, it looked like they questioned Paul, looked like they released Paul. He's mentioned in a warrant for arrest, but he's never arrested himself until later after the other 4 arrests. And so there's a couple things to keep in mind about this guy. For one, he had some video footage or pictures when the digging was taking place. And remember the day that they were digging, that's the day they arrested the 4, which is the same day, if memory serves, when they found our women, our Kansas moms.
This is the guy that was trying to sell the pictures, right?
Yes,
That
this is
messaged
the
her.
guy. Yeah, this is the guy that messaged Kari. I'm like, hey, I'm going to sell this to the highest bidder, so make me an offer. And Kari sends to me, I'm like, tell him to shove it. You don't exploit crap like that. And then it went out there anyway, which is fine. 2, again, you have to take things superficially until the rest of the story comes out, which is why Paul Harvey was so popular, because here's the rest of the story type
Right.
mentality. This guy didn't know what he didn't know. Paul Grice turned himself in. OSBI didn't just question him. He contacted them, or when the contact was made, he turned himself in and said, I have all this information. Go back and look at those arrest warrants. They got those first 4 arrested. There's a reason for that. There's a reason they had all that internal knowledge that they had, because the stuff that was in there, only the killer could have known. Because the witness, the minor witness known as CW, couldn't have known everything that was in there. But it was kind of made to look that way. But you had to be on site. You had to be a part of the whole shenanigans to see what's going on. So I can see where he's coming from. He didn't know any different. He had no idea. And a lot of people would have thought, well, they questioned him and let him walk away. Yeah, they did, because that was the agreement. And then Paul did turn himself in at 4 Corners. We've shown that picture before with his truck that was left behind by somebody who saw, they witnessed the arrest. And so I get this guy, right? You've got this great footage. You want to make some easy money, and hell, the news is everywhere. Let's sell it. And then come out here and say, I have no reason to believe that Paul have anything to do with this. They didn't keep a hold of him. Well, law enforcement is strategic for a reason. You got to have processes, so you need information to get those processes going faster. But I'd love for this. I've tried messaging this guy. I would love to talk with him and
Yeah, I would
understand
too.
more. But
And
he's
like, I
not.
get, these friends, saying like what he's saying. I totally get that, because people will put on a certain appearance. They're not going to put on this appearance that they just killed 2 women, or that they're planning it with just any friend. That's going to
Yes.
be keeping your circle real, real small.
Mhm.
Also, there's one thing I wanted to bring up about the autopsy report. Weren't they both stabbed on the left-hand side?
Yes. Well, yes, both were stabbed on the left-hand side from behind. Now, Veronica has other injuries to her front side, I believe, on the right. I have to go back and look, but she's, of the 2, she's the only one that has injuries to the front torso, and to the top of the head. But remember, she's significantly shorter than Jilian, and I believe the understanding is Jilian was attacked while lying down. So there's a lot of well, I say there's a lot. There's a couple different stories going on around out there that the attacks happened standing up, laying down, they were running, they were in the car, they were this, that, and the other. And it's feasible to think that Veronica was attacked in the car because of the way her stab wounds were. Veronica's feasible, and Jilian's feasible to believe she was attacked after she escaped from the car, having witnessed Veronica's attack, and she was attacked maybe in the field or out by the car, or something of that nature. But yeah, they were both attacked on the left side, and so you need to know what hand
Right. That's what I was kind of
the person was. Yes, and
make think about that for a minute.
yes. So there's, again, the media has only given certain pieces of information, and then you've got guys like this who are like, I'll sell you some information if you want it. Like, I have some juicy stuff. And he probably showed the same thing to Inton here. And Inton's like, I'm not paying you for that, but we answer some questions. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, why not? So that's why it's like, I need to go back and look. Both had injuries to the front, but Veronica had more, and both had defensive injuries on hands. And if Veronica attacked in car, how'd she get hit from behind? So you have to, again, this is where the medical knowledge comes into play. You got to kind of, I think in pictures, right? So as I'm reading these reports, I'm seeing the attack happen in my head because I think in pictures. It is possible that Veronica was attacked in the car from the left side, during her defense, during the time she's trying to defend herself, she may have crouched down and put her head down and tried to cover herself and twisted a little bit, because if you think about wounds and pain, your body is probably going to naturally twitch itself around and crouch. If she was attacked in the car, if she was attacked outside the car from behind, then you can see it more clearly. And so there's a lot of different scenarios that can play out here, which is why the preliminary will be very revealing as to who was attacked where. But again, it really doesn't matter in the end. 2 people lost their lives to 5 people's decision to take it. Now, the only reason they have to break that down in court is so they can convict these 5, which they're going to convict 3. The other 2 are taking plea deals. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The right cheeks, I think she did have a cut to the right cheek. But again, if you think about it, folks, as they are being attacked, you're squirming, you're moving. The weapon is being utilized in a fashion that is, there's a lot of adrenaline. So it's not just as though you are taking a knife to a scarecrow. You've got a human body that's fighting back, that's contorting, it's twisting, it's moving. This is not as clean cut as what we would like for it to be. These women fought. They fought hard. And unfortunately, they've got a couple of wounds that would have either made their lives unbearable to live or completed their lives right then and there. It wasn't all the stab wounds that created the result. It was a couple of specific ones that are I've talked to somebody who understands the medical examiner's report, and a couple of those wounds are extraordinarily difficult to do in certain positions. So there's a lot to come out about this, which again, you can't just get that from a coroner's report. It takes the coroner's report, it takes the investigators, it takes the crime scene processors. All these pieces of a puzzle have to come together, which is where the district attorney works with the court system to try and get these people to be held accountable. Knox, both are on new motion as state's witnesses. Correct. Who's taking a plea deal? Paul Greisen? Yes. Greisen, Twombly. Greisen's deal is in the bag, and Cora Twombly's is right there behind his. So it looks like they've both turned state's evidence against the other 3, which should make things interesting. I guess if you stop flirting with your lawyers in court in front of your wife, maybe she wouldn't turn your ass in. I don't know. That's seems like marriage 101.
We're probably going to see a few surprises come up, is what I'm thinking.
Yes. Yeah. There's information out there that we do not have. there's information that Kari and I don't have yet. There's information we have that we can't put out there yet, but there's a lot more to this case. And it's just, which is why we just hang on to it tooth and nail.
Right. It's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, it would be nice if he didn't get a plea deal, except Sarah, if it wasn't for him, the information that the investigators have, that law enforcement has, they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have otherwise. I do firmly believe, and this is me taking all the dots, connecting them, and creating a picture. I don't think they would have known where to dig if it hadn't been for Paul.
Right. That's what I think too. And CB, I do believe that the death penalty has been taken off the table for
Yes,
both
it has.
Paul and Cora.
Yeah, the death penalty's off the table. So, but we'll find out soon.
About the spouses can't testify. They can testify. They just
Oh,
can't
they
be
can.
forced to testify.
Correct.
So they could, say they're not going to, and they can't be forced to do it. But Cora wants to testify. She's been called as a state's witness in order to get that sweet plea deal. She's going to have to testify against her husband.
Yep. I guess that's why I made the joke. You don't want to flirt in front of Cora with your because when we were there. Oh my gosh, when was that? When we were there, was that September? And we got to see, and I wanted to be there for the body language. Kari's there to take notes, which worked out beautifully. And I'm leaning into somebody I was sitting with some family members in the courtroom. And I'm leaned over. I'm like, is that normal? And the family member's like, yeah, we've been watching that every month. That is what happens. And if you look over on the other side of the courtroom where Cora was at, she was not happy this last time. Like she was, I don't know these people very well, but by body language alone, I think Cora's like, I'll show you. Like it was like revenge factor type of stuff. And Cole just fried his own fish right there in front of his wife with his attorney. I'm like, dude, you've
Patrick,
got
the other three, they are still facing the death penalty. Martha, we don't know when the trial begins yet, but the preliminaries begin on the 17th of this month. Chair and I will both be there. There's not going to be cameras in the courtroom.
Correct.
But we're going to be there for the 3 days. And then each day after the hearings, we will go live and share what we learned in court that day.
Yep.
That is the best we can do, CB. So we need a spy camera.
You know what?
I would get busted
send
with
me
it.
the pin. Nope. Send me the pin with the spike or glasses. I wear readers. I can pull this crap off all the time. Just give me some with readers. It'll be great.
Right. Okay, so let's get through this, and then I just have a couple of other documents that I wanted to go over. I knew this was going to be a long live, and I apologize, but there's so much information I wanted to fit in it because it's probably our last one before the preliminary hearing.
From what I know of him.
So that neighbor was such a nice guy. We met up with him. You heard him talking about Paul Grice too. That is the person in the affidavit who was named by one of the suspect's daughters as being involved, but was never charged. And we learned from the neighbor and another source too that Paul Grice was taken into custody and then questioned, but then let go, which has a lot of people talking. I mean,
I will tell you something, that when they were taking people into custody, we were talking to somebody who knew everything that was happening in town. And that source said to me, there are going to be 5 people arrested. And I actually told you that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody thought for sure that 5 people, I don't know how she or he, I don't know how the source knew that, but they did say. And then it turns out that Paul Grice is arrested, not arrested, he's taken into custody, he's questioned, but he was brought in with them. And then he's released and everybody is concerned, why isn't he arrested? Well, why isn't he in custody? Why hasn't he been charged? Because they obviously didn't have the evidence to charge him. They don't have it yet. They have said the investigation's ongoing, but it seems odd, and you and I have discussed this at length, that they let out somebody on this brutal of a crime with so much focus on it, the people killing 2 young women, burying them, so with the intention of nobody ever finding them and their families never knowing what happened to them. You got to ask yourself if there had been any evidence to link him besides the testimony, the comments in the affidavit that are attributed to the daughter of one of the defendants.
And you made a good point too on the phone the other day with me that a lot of people online are saying, well, maybe he's cooperating and helping, and that's why they're not arresting him. But that's not really how it works with the murder. I mean, you still get arrested. Maybe you get a plea deal or a lesser charge, but you wouldn't just not get arrested to begin with.
No,
right?
you get to, I'll tell you everything.
Except it did work that way. It really did.
Don't arrest
me. Yeah, that's how it works.
If anybody ever has watched an episode of Law and Order, I mean,
Although it's a small town. I mean, maybe they probably not.
No, but if you even know any kind of criminal procedure, somebody would be arrested and as they were or be being taken into custody, they would be talking and they would say, what kind of a deal can I get if I tell you something, have a lawyer present? I mean, and that's how it would happen. And they would strike some sort of a deal there about we're still going to have to arrest you, but we can make an agreement with the district attorney, something along those lines.
Right.
And as far as I mean, all I could say is that he was connected to the other defendants. I remember, I was talking with, some other people, another lawyer, and that maybe, they just don't have the evidence yet. But it doesn't sound like that because I think this is a terrified and scared town. And the police, I think, arrested who they think was involved.
Yeah. One of the other interesting moments of the last week for us was going to the spot where the bodies were buried, which was very surreal. And we got access to the property at a very strange time. It was late, dark, probably not ideal time. It would have been great to have the daylight just for the camera's sake, but when you get access to something, you go for it. And I want to show everybody that clip just so you can get an idea of the area where the bodies were. It's dark out here, so bear with me, but this is the area where the missing women were found. This is the spot. You remember in the police report, they mentioned a dam. This right here, this buildup of dirt, this is the dam. There's a pond on the other side. And if you walk with me this way, just about 50 feet or so, maybe a little more from the dam, you can see where the earth is disturbed, where the tractors were out here. This is where investigators came. They dug right in this area, went down about 10 feet, I'm told, and this is where they discovered the missing mom's bodies. If you look in the distance there, you can see there is a pile of hay back there. I am told by sources that hay was moved over the area where the digging happened, that the suspect Tad, moved that hay over here to cover up the area where he was digging, hoping that the cows, this is there's a cow farm here, that the cows would come over, this is a ranch, and start feeding on the hay and make the area look less suspicious. But still, investigators were led to the spot. And again, this is the area right here where they started digging and they found the bodies.
It was crazy.
It was, yeah. It was a little creepy out there, and just like sad to be in that spot and think of like what, just a couple of weeks ago, what happened out there.
And the lengths that they went to make sure the defendants, if they did it, of course they're innocent until proven guilty, but the allegations are that the lengths that they went to covering it up, putting in rocks so that it would fill in area in the hole so people would notice, any kind of difference in the level of the ground.
I'd like to know which of those dummies' idea it was to put the cell phones in with them.
It's probably a group vote.
Or
take it into the cell phone store. Here's my broken burner phone.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
or
mind
take the
fixing this
broken
for
cell
me?
phone in. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Not very bright for sure.
I mean,
Paul helped a lot, I think, and Cora has too, since she's done her plea deal. Excuse me, but definitely they made a lot of mistakes like that. Those cell phones, I mean, they pinged those right away. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's even when you walk over it, it's very soft now. It was terrible. And I just kept thinking, well, kind of, even though it's so horrible, at least they found them.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible situation. And I just kept thinking, at least they found so that the families at least can bury, the two ladies. I kept thinking also 5 kids, no moms. It's horrible.
You wonder where the kids are now and how they're going to do. And
also that area, as we drove down that dirt road, where there's a dirt road, like things are flying and there's like stones hitting your windshield and it's very rural and we're going by all these farms. I kept thinking like, this is where, this was where they we don't know if they were already deceased, but this is like where they
act like we live in a foreign land. That's what I'm hearing with them describing this. I'm like, it describes the area I live in, and they're sounding like we live in Germany or something.
Well, they're not from the area. They're from LA, Hollywood, New York, and they're like, oh my God, there's these things that are on 4 legs and they do this sound, and I don't know what they are. And you're like, cows? You mean cows? Well, then there's these taller things, and they measure them by hands, and it's like horses. It's like, dear God, folks, get countrified just a little bit. It really is. I'm like, how do you expect people to? No, but for us in the Midwest, like, this is funny and humorous, but to folks that are in the big metropolitans like LA and Hollywood and New York and all that great fun jazz, they're like, oh my God, tell us more. Like, except for before she gets on my case, except for get to ducking point, you understand. I know you understand. Apparently, Grandma doesn't understand the concept of a burner phone.
Yeah. And CB said, stones don't hit my windshield unless someone's in front of me. Sheesh. True.
Yes, correct.
True.
Absolutely.
They took them, and it's like it's just so isolated, and it was so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, just as we went there, and especially at night, and that's actually when they were taken, and how they buried them.
And it was, as I said in the video, they were 10 feet down. Usually it's like shallow grave when you do these stories, but this was 10 feet down. And part of it is because the suspects had, especially, they're farmers, they've got the equipment, they know how to dig, they know how to conceal, putting the hay on top.
We had to learn, like, as we were looking, like that, when they put the hay on top and they're trying to make sure that the soil isn't a different color, because apparently it is once you dig into it. And it's just, I mean, that's just horrific. And when you look at the affidavit and look at what Cora's daughter told the police about why Jilian was killed, that she was on Veronica's side in the custody dispute, when really she was just there to supervise. It's just horrible. Even I think that maybe that is part of why Cora's daughter told the truth about, or told her what she knew about what happened, because she was so, even the questions she was asking were just like awful.
Well, and it didn't take much for police. I mean, you had it all. All you do is look at the court filings and the history, and the motive became pretty clear. So,
well, there's a document I think that really struck me that we got that other people didn't have, which was a document. It's called a writ of habeas corpus, but basically it's that somebody has taken, that these children were taken by Grandma Tiffany, and that Veronica had kidnapped, basically, is what you're saying, and that her children should be returned to her because she had not seen her kids since from July until September. She had not seen them at all. And they were supposed to have supervised visitation, and Grandma Tiffany was literally jerking her around and canceling things, never bringing the kids. And one time Veronica had COVID, but mostly, she didn't see her kids. And when we talked to the lawyer, it was like months went by. It's hard, so, and D-Day was coming. It was a reckoning coming.
And that was going to be the same day as that hearing, the same day that they ended up getting indicted, which is crazy. Another part of our coverage the last week, which people really kind of latched onto and were very interested in, was this judge that we interviewed, Judge Forbes. He's the municipal judge on the Kansas side. Really has nothing to do with the case at all, but knows people involved. I knew one of the victims at least.
He was in business with Tad.
And was in business with the suspect Tad, and really
saw him
every single day for the last couple months, and was at his house. Was at Tad's house, he says, when the police came and raided the place, and he had a shotgun put in his face. This is the municipal judge, and so I had met him the day before, and he told me some stories, but he didn't really want to go on the record. And then we just saw him kind of walking by again the next day. It's a small town, you just see people around, and he decided, yeah, I'll tell you guys the story. He's kind of an outspoken guy. I don't think he didn't want to feel like anybody could control him from speaking, and he wanted to speak. And so
I think he spoke to us because he was like, he's so shocked at what was going on.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted to share some of that trauma, just sort of get it out, because he's a veteran, and he actually spoke about how it was kind of it was triggering to have the gun put in his face. He had a business with Tad that was sawmills. It was very and he was over there, and they had been seeing each other quite a bit, and he thought he was a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
So he was very traumatized. I think he wanted to talk about it, but I think he also is somebody that wants to exercise his right to free speech.
I think so. I want to play for you guys the first time we interviewed Judge Forbes.
I'm still, I'll say it again, I'm blown away that this even happened. I just can't. Tad was a very good friend of mine. I'm not going to say was a very good friend of mine. He is a good friend of mine. But this just blew me away.
Okay, so that was when we interviewed Judge Forbes in the car, and then we played the interview, and then Allison called the judge. And
let me just tell you, I mean, I called the judge right after because I wanted to see how he was doing and if he was okay with the interview. And when we have somebody on, I like to follow up and be sure that everything was okay with them. And so I called, and he goes, well, I go, how you doing? He goes, not so good. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, I've been fired. I'm like, what? He said, yeah. The mayor who appoints him told him, we want you to resign. And the mayor is the one who's allowed to hire him. And then the city council chimed in. He was asked to come over. And so we saw one of the council members, and they said, yeah, we want you to go and you need to resign. He goes, fine, I quit, right? I'm leaving. And then they said, well, we need you to put it in writing. And by the way, the city council has no control over whether he stays or not. And he goes, they need me to put it in writing. So he took a piece of paper and wrote, I quit, and handed it to them.
He's a character. He had a good personality through the whole thing. But we went back. I felt bad that he got fired.
I felt really badly.
But he's outspoken. He wanted to talk to us again. We said, let us.
I remember feeling really bad when he got fired as well. It was kind of an unfortunate situation for him. But I never could figure out why the hell he did the interviews anyway. Like, such bad decision making to have done those interviews.
It didn't add anything other than, here, I'm a character witness for Tad, and because I'm not a threat to him, I'm his business partner. It's like, what's your gain here, dude? You're a judge. You understand what this can do to the case. You're a judge. And that's probably had something to do with the city council and the mayor all being like, are you dumb? What are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing this. Like, that's a bad. And if you're gonna make that kind of a bad call off the bench, what kind of calls are you making on the bench?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very bad judgment there.
Let's come back and you can tell us the whole story about what happened.
I forgot to say too that the mayor had said to him, at least according to him, I mean, we haven't had a chance to interview the mayor as of yet, but that he was getting a lot of flack. They were getting a lot of flack. And I think it was odd because the judge had really just expressed that he was friends with Tad and he was still his friend. Even though he had, he was about to be indicted, even though he'd been arrested and he's a defendant. He said, when somebody's your friend, they're still your friend. He's still waiting to see what happened. Yeah. And I think that triggered a lot of response from the community.
Yeah. And the fact that he was there when the raid happened, I think, again, all sorts of rumors were flying. But anyway, listen to what the judge said. We went back the next day after he got fired, forced to resign. And this was what he told us.
I was sitting here in the house and I got a phone call. There was a city council meeting last night. And they said, you need to go over here. So I went over there. It's only a block. I walked over. And I went in and they were in executive session. When it was over 3 or 4 minutes, they called me in and sat down. They said, we've had a lot of static about your interview, and we don't like it. The mayor has absolute control over my job. I'm appointed. He can hire me or fire me. And I said, well, just fire me. One of the councilmen popped up and said, oh, you're going to turn in your resignation. He's very nasty about it. I didn't appreciate that. And I said, that's not a problem. I'll quit. They couldn't believe I didn't know what was going on with Tad. Murders, rapists, thieves, they don't walk around with that printed on their forehead. And if they would kill somebody, you think maybe they might lie to you? I asked Tad when they disappeared. I sat him down and said, do you have anything to do with this? He said, no. I don't understand it other than people just have to blow this up. People have to have all the bloggers. We have all the people on the internet, media, stuff like this stuff that just have to come up with all this stuff. Actually had to make up to me and say, you bought a wood chipper. You guys couldn't run the body through that. No, I didn't. I bought a sawmill. It probably wouldn't even cut a human body up. See, it's all that crap like that that has blown this way up out of proportion. If I would have known, I'd have said something. I'd have done something. I honestly had no idea. I wanted to buy a sawmill. He came up to me and said, I want a business with you. I think it's a good deal. He put in 3 times as much money as I did. He walked up with the money. I went into business with him.
How much money did these people have? Were they really wealthy? Tad and Tiffany?
I don't know for sure. I know that there's a lot of farmland involved. Thousands of acres. Thousands of acres.
So yeah, the judge was an interesting sort of component. I didn't think that that kind of came out of nowhere that we even interviewed him, and then you know what, we'll stay in touch with him for sure.
I have to say that the people in this community, and the judge is kind of indicative of that, very kind, very warm, very upset, but willing to speak and to tell you what they're feeling. And some of them need to tell you what they're feeling because they're so shocked that these people that they went to school with and that they grew up with would do something so heinous. And that was kind of what we got from people that actually knew Tiffany, that know Tad, that Cole, and that know Cora. They can't wrap their heads around it.
And there were several like farmer men, tough guy men that got teary-eyed when we would talk to them about this. And were clearly very emotional about the fact that they knew the victims, but also that they knew the suspects and trusted some of the suspects. And I think we're just shocked and felt betrayed. And gosh, you think you know people and you don't. And this kind of stuff doesn't really happen there. So, it was just for me to see like the men tear up, like
they're
ranchmen, these are people who like work on farmers. I'm just like, wow, you saw how deep it went.
The other thing too, that was a big upset about this story is where the bodies were found. And they were found at the home and the farm of this guy named Jamie Beasley. And he, had rented out a portion, some of his land to Tad Cullum, and he'd known him. They'd done some business together in the past. And he just sure, he had been sick and he needed to get, needed some financial help. So he said, I'm going to rent out this stuff to Tad. And he done it like in May. And then he's like in his home and the police come, guns a-blazing. They have a warrant, like to search, to look for if their bodies buried somewhere on his land. And he actually didn't, from what we have reported through sources, he actually allowed them in and they didn't need the warrant. He was like, go ahead. And he tried to do his best to help as he could. And it's just so awful. He has been like the subject of a lot of harassment and rumors. And, all he did was rent some land to someone who decided to allegedly bury 2 bodies and kill 2 women.
And Tad is a very rich guy from what we've been told, has a lot of land and businesses. And Jamie, where he leased the land and buried the bodies, is just a normal guy from what we can tell. He's got a son and he's not some rich guy.
No, he has a lot of kids. He's got grandchild.
I just felt it's like, gosh, Tad, had used that land to bury it. He could have really gotten Jamie in a bad situation. They have similar trucks. So one
of the neighbors actually said to me that he wondered about that. As someone who was, was wealthier, that why he could have buried it on my land. He could have Jamie buried it on so-and-so's land, because surrounding Jamie's area are some wealthier farmers, more, who have more land and have been doing this, for generations, have been farming for generations or ranching for generations. And everybody, there is a sense that maybe there was a bit of a setup there, because if, Tad had buried Veronica and Jilian on their land, he would have had there would have been some serious repercussions if they noticed anything amiss, because they're wealthy, that they have a lot of power in the town. So, there's that dynamic as well.
Yeah. The whole thing is just, it's so sad. I think I'm so tired, but also just emotional. Yeah, you leave these stories and you just think about the people that you met and things you have in common with people. Again, like going into this, you're going to Western Oklahoma. Be careful. Like everybody's armed. I'm leaving thinking that they're just normal, nice people, and that they've just been really rocked by this.
I think that it's interesting. They don't have these kinds of things. This is like a freak, terrible thing that's happened to this community, and people are saying don't even go through there. I'm not going to drive on that street. This was a targeted murder.
Yeah.
They knew exactly who they wanted to kill. That something went very wrong with all the people that were involved, that they decided that this was the solution to the custody issue. And I felt badly for the people in the town, and I have to say, I agree with you. Emotionally, this one was really tough, because in that courtroom,
moms and kids are involved.
That courtroom.
Yeah, the courtroom. Yeah.
The pain. It was palpable. The pain from the family. You could feel it, and there was nothing you could do to help. It was so sad.
Well, we'll have to continue to follow it. There's a hearing on May 15th. I have a feeling there's going to be more. The affidavits were pretty basic. There's going to be a lot more information that comes out about what led up to this and how they were able to figure out who did it. All right. Well, thank you for watching. We're going to bed.
Good night.
Thank you for all your hard work, Allison.
Thank you
Okay.
for all your hard.
All right. So I thought they did a pretty good overview of that at that point. It wasn't salacious. It was, they stuck to the facts as we knew them at that point. So get to Ducking Point. Everybody's asking about Tad and the amount of money. Our understanding is, yeah, very land rich, cash poor. And that kind of goes for Tiffany as well, I believe. You're muted, Tara.
And okay, here we go.
There she
I had
is.
dogs howling behind me, so I was trying to save you all the ear candy. As far as Tad and Tiffany's finances are concerned, at their personal level, yeah, land rich, cash poor. However, Tad has parents who have money, and Tad has access to that, which is why he has these high-powered attorneys that are representing him and helping him that have actual murder trial experience, to my understanding. What do we have before us? I know I'm not muted. Are you muted? Did I miss something?
I'm muted. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
okay, that's good to know.
I just have 3 more documents I wanted to go over real quick. They're nothing real long, but they do have, the facts as we know them as of now to take us into the preliminary. Yeah, Tiffany has trust money. All right, so this was the state's brief in support of consolidation for the preliminary hearing. And in this one, it says Tad Cullum, Tiffany Adams, Cole Twombly, Cora Twombly, and Paul Grice all entered into an agreement, conspiracy, and planned the murders of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. Pursuant to the plan and in furtherance of the conspiracy, they each did their respective part, which culminated in the deaths of Butler and Kelley. Cole and Cora, in part, were the lookouts on the day of the murders, and in furtherance of the conspiracy, they confided in their daughter in hopes of receiving an alibi for the morning of the murders. Grice, in part, stabbed and killed Butler. He sliced his hand badly with the knife and accompanied the bodies of Butler and Kelley to the burial site. He threw his clothing, stun device, and the knife used to kill Butler in the burial site. His clothing found in the burial site contained his and Veronica's DNA. Tad, in part, got permission from the landowners to dig the hole for the burial site, and he dug the hole with his skid steer the day before the murders. He stabbed and killed Kelley and drove the bodies of Butler and Kelley to the burial site. That right there tells us that they were deceased at the car, by the way.
Yep.
Not that we have that question, but I know it still floats around. So
Yeah.
he put his clothing in the burial site and buried Butler and Kelley inside a freezer in the previously dug hole. His clothing found at the burial site contained his and Jillian's DNA. The accessories to the knife found at the burial site were found in his home. So we've never seen a search warrant for his home. I wonder if there was or wasn't. Tara, you got an answer on that, didn't you?
Yeah, when you serve a warrant for arrest, you can search the area within the immediate space of the person you're going to arrest. So if they are in a bedroom, you can search the bedroom. If they're in the living room, you can search the living room. You just can't extend that search anywhere beyond that. So let's say all 4 people were in the house just for funsies, and each one's in a different room, and there's 4 rooms, 1 per person, you can search the whole house at that point. But if it's just Tad and Tiffany and they're both in the same room, you're only catching for that same room. So there's that's how that breaks down. So if Tad was dumb enough to have, like, let's say he had the knife and he was dumb enough to have it in the room with him where he was arrested at, or if it was within reach or in the same room, let's say it was just sitting there on top of the table or something dumb. It's not as though these people have done smart to this point yet, so it wouldn't be surprising. Then they could confiscate that knife and say, we got this. And because it's not part of the arrest warrant, it doesn't have to be reported there, but later on during testimony, the arresting officer, who doesn't have to be the name of the person on the arrest warrant, let's be cognizant of that. the arresting officer or the officers present at the time can testify to say, we found that knife in this position at this point in time when we were serving an arrest warrant. So that's why that can all fall into play later on. It doesn't have to be documented and things like this.
Right. Thank you. Because she reached out to specifically ask that question.
Correct.
All right. So Adams, in part, purchased the burner phones from Walmart, which were used by the conspirators to communicate. She purchased the stun device at Standard Supply.
Gosh.
The stun devices were found in the burial site. She purchased the yellow straps that were placed around the freezer containing the bodies of Butler and Kelley at Tractor Supply. She purchased the pants that Cullum put in the burial site. Adams hated and despised Butler and wanted her dead. Pursuant to the plan and conspiracy, each defendant did their part to aid and abet in the murders of Butler and Kelley.
And just to remind people, those yellow straps were the ones that she's catching child neglect or abuse charges for, because she had the kids with her when she bought those, and they carried those straps throughout Walmart. That's why she's catching the charges for the child. I can't remember what they are, but it's those charges that are in relation to the children.
All right. So the next one, this says Tad, but this is going to go for Tad, Cole, and Cole, right? No, not Cole. Yeah, Cole. Tad and Cole.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. I'm losing it here. All right. This was filed October 3rd. They have 7 charges each. You can see those on the screen. 2 counts of murder in the first degree, conspiracy, 2 counts of unlawful removal of a dead body, and 2 counts of unlawful desecration of a human corpse. And in this one, count 1, murder in the first degree, deliberate intent by aiding and abetting in the commission of the deliberate and intentional taking away of the life of a human being on or about the 30th day of March 2024. And they're willfully, unlawfully, and feloniously without authority of law, aid and abet in the death of Veronica Butler, who was lured to the location of Highway 95 and Rodell in Texas County, Oklahoma. And certain mortal wounds were inflicted. And Veronica Butler did, in fact, die as a result of the wounds inflicted. It's going to say the same thing for Jilian, so that's the count 2. Those crimes are punishable by death, imprisonment for life, or imprisonment for life without parole. We do not know yet if this is going to be a death penalty case, do we, Tara? Last I knew...
For the 3 remaining, it's on the table.
It's on the table.
Yeah, it is on the table.
Count 3, conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree by conspiring and agreeing with Paul Grice, Tiffany Adams, Cora Twombly, and Cole Twombly to commit the crime of murder in the first degree, a felony on or about the 13th day of February 2024. So they included that first attempt of February and the 30th day of March 2024 by arranging and planning the deliberate, intentional, and unlawful taking away of the life of Veronica Butler and or Jilian Kelley, and the defendant and or co-conspirators did purchase burner phones, stun guns, ratchet straps, and traveled to the area of Highway 95 in Rodell, County of Texas, Oklahoma, in furtherance of the conspiracy. And that is punishable by imprisonment for not more than 10 years, or a fine of not more than $5,000, or by both fine and imprisonment. Then they have 2 counts of unlawful removal of a dead body, both felonies, on or about 30th day of March 2024 by intentionally removing the dead body of a human being, to wit, Veronica Butler, from the original place of death without authorization from the district attorney or medical examiner or either of their authorized representatives, and without circumstances to justify the removal. And then the same thing goes for Jilian Kelley. That is punishable by imprisonment for up to 5 years, or in the county jail for not more than 1 year, or of a fine of up to $5,000, or both of those per each charge or count. And then there are 2 final counts of unlawful desecration of a human corpse, and on or about 30th day of March 2024 by knowingly and willfully desecrating a human corpse, to wit, Veronica Butler, by tampering with the evidence of a crime scene, disposing of the dead body of said Veronica Butler underground in the area of the County of Texas, Oklahoma, which impeded the detection, investigation, or prosecution of a crime and resulted in the loss of evidence. And there are those 2 counts there, and those are punishable by imprisonment in the Department of Corrections for not more than 7 years, or by a fine of not more than $8,000, or by both. So that is that. Those are just the witnesses endorsed for state of Oklahoma. If you haven't seen those in a while,
Mm-hmm.
they got quite a few. All right. Then the next one is Tiffany's. You want to stop? Do you want to say anything?
No, other than I know there's been some ideas floating around about the desecration of a human corpse, specifically regarding the freezer in which the 2 women were found in. They were not mutilated. They were not cut into pieces. They were not
Right.
dismembered. They were in whole with their wounds from the knife and positioned into a freezer with those straps to seal it shut. So desecration of a human corpse only means they were buried underground without permission in this particular case.
Yeah.
So there's another, I can't remember what it is now, and I don't remember if I sent it to you, Kari. There is a specific charge. There's a name for it when you actually cause more I don't know if you call it injury or harm or damage to a corpse. There's a different charge for that, to my understanding, and this is not it. They were doing things that they're not supposed to be doing as far as hiding the bodies. That's how they're covering that.
Good night, Nighthawk. Hey again. Yep. What did Tiffany buy at PTCI? That's the internet company, correct? Patrick, I believe that's what that is.
The burner phones are from Walmart. The stun guns came from
Big R.
Yeah, and then the the burner phones came from Walmart, as did the burner phones came from Walmart, stun guns from the Big R, and then the Tractor Supply is where she got the straps. So she's busy making errands that day.
Yeah, she was. All right. And so the final one is Tiffany's amended information. This was filed October 3rd as well. And she has 9 counts rather than the 7 that the other 2 have. 2 counts of murder in the first degree, 1 count of conspiracy, 2 of unlawful removal of a dead body, 2 of unlawful desecration of a human corpse, and 2 child neglect charges. So everything else is going to read basically the same as the other 2.
Correct. Agreed.
So the only thing different are the last 2 counts of child neglect. And that says on or about the 23rd day of March 2024 by willfully, maliciously neglecting KR, 6 years old at that time, by exposing KR to illegal activity, to wit, aiding and abetting the first-degree murders of Veronica and Jilian, by having KR help carry a ratchet strap at the Guyman Tractor Supply that was to be used to wrap around the freezer containing the deceased bodies of Veronica and Jilian. And there was another one, I know I already went through it, but it was the one where Tiffany says that she spoke on recording that she did play a role in this.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is she didn't have an attorney present when she said it, and it'll probably be thrown out of court. But
yeah,
but it is in one of the papers, and
that's where she talks about taking responsibility, which is very specific to Oklahoma law versus admitting guilt.
Right.
And then Average Farmer says PTCI is where Tiffany took the phone for repair.
That might be.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that store, but that's probably
PTCI isn't what we know of the name. We don't know it called that, though. We're talking about the cell phone store in Guyman.
Yeah, there's that. So yeah, the cell phone store in Guyman where she took the phone for a pair and he made the call to
Oh, the
law
code. The
enforcement.
code. That was it. The
Yeah.
code was the name of that store.
Okay, there it is. Oh goodness. Oh,
She took the phone to the code to
the
get
code,
repaired.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But if there's no, it's depending on PTCI, the code, there could be some connection there depending on what you know about the business too. So kind of want to be open
Mhm.
thinking about that. There's a reason that somebody puts that in there, so it's probably worth looking into a little bit more and questioning. But ultimately, the idiot took the phone in there to be repaired. She took a burner phone, which somebody pointed out already. That kind of defeats the purpose of a burner phone. The burner phone is not to be traceable. And yet she paid for it with a debit card that links back to her. And then she takes it to have it repaired. And then it's stupid criminals of the day. Who knows? But it's good times.
Patrick, that is my understanding because PTCI is like an internet type company. I just wonder if that wasn't what was used to ping the phones as well. But anyway, so gosh, 2 hours and 37 minutes. That's probably the longest we've gone. That was a lot. I really appreciate everybody sticking around for it the whole time. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to Michael Vaughn's story. Like I
Yes.
said, I will be on Crime Lines and Lies in the morning. And my goal is just to discuss his case more, get the information out more, and hopefully I take away and learn some more about his case as well to be able to bring it back. Other than that, again, I just want to thank all of you for being so supportive of me over the last 2 weeks. It truly has meant the world, and I'm not just saying that. It really has. I can never repay all of you. So your kind words have really helped a lot. And we will be back the 17th. That's going to be interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. My
Absolutely.
thoughts are we will probably just go live each day right after the court with our
Sounds like a
notes and
plan.
all. All right. So thank you again so much, Texas Blue Bonnets. Great to see you.
Hello, Texas.
Ellie, thank you so much. Shayna, appreciate you guys. Martha, Patrick, Bojangles, CB, yep, all of you guys. Thank you, thank you. And we're going to leave it at that. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Be safe. Install Life 360. And we love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thank
Have
you,
a good
Tara.
night. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Bye-bye.